Blessings, one and all. Good to be with you. Once again, Zeph Daniel of the Zeph Report, ZJ Studios, New Mexico, 432-528, and any frequency in between. There was a frequency. My frequency is better than your frequency. People actually were stupid enough to write me and tell me that 432 hertz is a proven frequency where 528 isn't, and I've been wrong all this time to have recorded in 528. And honestly, I'm really, if anyone writes me with something that stupid, the response is, you're just gone from my life in terms of me ever considering an email again, because it's just a waste of time. And I think what the problem is with the internet, with Facebook, and getting issues like this, and I got other people on Facebook telling me the same thing, because I'm ZJ 528. So they keep, posting 432 people, and what they don't understand is one of the hallmark songs on our album, Sword and Dove, which they won't listen to because nothing good can come out of Nazareth. You know what I mean? They know me as one thing, so they cannot accept me as a music producer, which is my natural way. To me, the word is music as well. So I'm a musician and a producer, whatever. So they see but don't listen to anything recorded in 528. And if they did listen, they realize that one of my hallmark songs, one of our greatest songs, is called Sunrise. And that was not only played and composed in 432, but it was sung and guitars were tuned, as well as the whole studio tuned to 432 to complete the song. And that gave it a very interesting vibration, a very interesting frequency. It really is powerful. And when I've done the name of God in 528, 528, by the way, is really, let's explain what we mean. 432 means A is detuned 32 steps down to 4. It happens to be 32. I don't know, that's coincidental, but it's 32 steps or cents, 32 100ths of a step down. It's 32 100ths of a step, or if you like, it's 30% of one step, one musical step down. It's detuned 32 100ths. In other words, about 32% of the one step. So it's detuned slightly. Okay. 528, when they say that, they mean high C, the high C, C5 is 528. So that's the healing frequency, C5. Many people say they have 528 music, but they're not in the key of C or hitting the note C5. See what I mean? And so they're not getting the benefit of that. Well, let me explain this. 528 is really 443. Or if you like, it's 443 is 12 100ths, or about 12% higher than basic tuning, which is 440. 440. So really, when I say I'm playing in 528, what I mean is I'm playing in 443. I could just as easily play it in 444, which is also in that zone, or 443. Just like if I play in 432, it's detuned. If it's in 443, it's tuned slightly higher. And I emphasize slight, it's almost inaudible. But your body understands it, your DNA understands it. Now, I've also done tracks in various frequencies between, say, 400 and say 450, and found that not only so they write me saying 432 is a proven higher frequency. I guess they mean by that higher vibration, because it's not higher than 528. 528 is about 40% of a higher frequency than 432 if you're just going by notation. It's tuned higher. 443 is detuned or tuned lower. So one is higher than the other. That doesn't mean it's more effective at all. When you tune your guitar to the key of E, key of D, key of C, so you have an open strum of those chords, and then you learn to play above it, or let us slide, people will tune their guitars to either B or E. B is just a really, we always keep landing on B being like a root note of a rhythm and blues or blues. And also E, and E is contained within that scale. So, anyway, I don't know why people want to to me, that's just a personal attack. Now, I've explained it, but no, I know it won't work, because there's YouTubes out there where people are touting their frequency, their pet frequency, as the frequency, especially 432, because they're trying to go against Leonard Horowitz, having proclaimed 528 is the God. Now, what he means by that is that 528 or C5, it's a high C. I can't even get up that high. It's a C5. And he considers that to be a healing frequency. All I know is I've experimented in all of them, and 528 it's very subtle. The reason they say 528 is nothing, 432 is something, is because 432 is detuned enough where you can hear it. So they say, oh, look, it's more powerful. 528 is so subtle you really can't hear the difference between 440 and 443, right? It's too subtle. So they go, oh, nothing's happening. So I deal with this level of ignorance and stupidity, stupid questions from people who think, and then they want to lecture me about God, and then I'm really what they just want to do is have me say, I'm sorry for ever having spoken publicly. I should sit down and now listen to you. We all should. You're such a prophetic, anointed person. I should just produce your show and just stand down and shut up. And there's been people that don't laugh. There's people out there who just thought that's what I should do. Once I met them, I'd realize immediately that I had to drop everything and put them on the air. You've got that. Oh, there's no end to what the flesh will do. And then along with, the political talk about if I say anything of stating a conservative principle I have in the economy or whatever, I get,
well, the right has lots of, is just as corrupt. It's just like a Hegelian dialectic back and forth. There's no difference between them.
No matter what I say, I posted a thing yesterday about the headline was, the left wants to ban torture but use drones to kill people. Killing is okay, torture is out. You can use drones to kill, they're all for that, but they're against torture. I find that incredibly ironic. No sooner do I post that article about the approval of drones that Obama did to kill Americans that are deemed the enemy, which ought to scare you. Well, I mean, that's kind of a awful way to go. You're driving along and then you just get droned out of the sky. You've rocket grenades going off and, rockets being fired from planes on our soil at our people. It's just, I don't know what's more despicable. The people in Washington are just absolutely, on all sides, despicable. Just horrible human beings. That's all you can say about it. They're just horrible human beings who've sold out to the system. And yes, they're all like that. But if I say something about the left promoting, the idea was no torture, but drones are okay. That's a left-wing policy. Okay, that's the godless left who cheer God out of the platform. No sooner do I post that than I get people chiming in and saying, the right's just as, like lecturing me that the right is just as bad. Like I don't know that. And deflecting from what the article stated. And then it's so exasperating me. I just pulled the post down because I'm like, if these people are so dumb and so distracted, or that they just want to flag attention to themselves as being so much far superior to me or to anybody that they encounter, because they figured out that not to participate in anything in Babylon, USA, and sit there and wait to be raptured, which is the stupidest thing a person could ever do. The most idiotic thing a person could do is sit there and wait for the rapture and not participate because, oh, they're all corrupt. Like, who are you, holier than thou? Who are you, a god? And we all need to sit there then and be lectured by these people who are smart enough to figure out not to participate in this evil society. It just exasperates. What can I say? I'm surrounded by fools. If I state any logical retort to those awful comments that were meant to distract from my post, and I wanted to talk to you about drones, but you see, automatically, if I say one thing about what the left is doing, and it's not the right, it's the left. Of course, the right has approval, but this is a left-wing policy. That is, no torture, that's mean, but drones are okay because Obama likes them. Okay, so that's a tremendous, I feel that topic deserves discussion. But to be then lectured, because I didn't say, oh, and the right's all along with it. No, because it's a left-wing policy coming out of left-wing politics. The right, they do plenty of things themselves, or people that pose as right, and they're really not left or right, but wars, rumors of wars, we all have our hands dirty in America. But this idea that they would take issue or distract from the point, it's like, yes, I already know that. What about this topic? Well, but this topic's lost, because then they go on posting about how evil Bush is or Cheney or something like that, when it wasn't about what the right is or is not doing. It's about the left-wing policy of no torture, but drones are okay. That's not coming from conservatives. Oh, they may approve it, but I'm just saying that this was one of the things that was ironic, no? Deserves it. Do you have to come in and go, well, the righteous is corrupt too, Why would I let you lecture me when I already know what you're saying? Well, why do you feel like you're on stage? What are these? Everyone's a star on Facebook, right? I mean, you can just say anything. And so my policy, because of how unfair that is, that you can't, if I say something about the left and not the right, or if I say something about the right and not the left, it doesn't mean I don't think that they're both corrupt, so I should sit here and wait for the rapture. Well, I'm not going to do that. It just means that this is this topic. I'm not saying, well, the right gets a pass. But the idea of browbeating and lecturing people because they don't say, oh, yes, but the right is just, like we have this political correctness where now we have to say the left and the right are both equally corrupt, so I now want to make this statement. Because waterboarding and torture under Bush, as far as I know, was done and not banned. Anyway, it doesn't matter now. There is no difference, so we can't say left or right or anything. We can't differentiate or have a discussion because now, you see, it's moot because they both come out and I'm really smart. See, look at me, look at me, look at me. Look at me, I'm waiting for the rapture. Look at me, look at me.
I figured out you're all so stupid. You're all caught up in politics and news discussion, and it's all corrupt. It's all bad. The whole thing is bad. So I'm just going to sit here.
Nothing exacerbates me more than being lectured to by an idiot, and then the idiot using him or herself as an example of what we should all do, sit and wait for the rapture and get ourselves sinless so we'll be a spotless bride for our King who's coming to rescue us. I can't think of more of a fairy tale, I cannot even imagine a Disneyland-esque Wizard of Oz sort of reality mentality that a person like that could even get into. They're just desperately unhappy here. And we all have to share in that unhappiness, or we're not anointed, we're not intelligent. You can tell I got a lot more energy now, right? Amen. The Lord guided me into still waters. Yeah, it's a miracle. It was just as good as being raptured, man. But, oh, well, that doesn't count. Okay. Not good enough, Lord. Sorry, they want to see the parting of the Red Sea or nothing. And that's it. They're waiting. If they don't see that, that's it. Faith out the window. So, I guess, and don't take this personally, but when I see, if you listen to this, when I see that kind of thing, you post something and not honoring the topic, I will delete it. And it just means, it doesn't mean you weren't saying something that might be profound in your own right, but it's like, go put it on your own page. My statement no, most of you don't even deal with Facebook, and I don't know why I have, but you're going to get all that. But no, my policy is now, if I put a post up and it's a comment that has nothing to do with it, but it's more like either wanting to lecture everyone because they need to be lectured to, or some off-topic thing, it's going to be deleted. And then if you want to delete me, go ahead. Plenty have. I remember this one woman, all I did was I stood up for myself and wouldn't let her, browbeat me. And then she considered that abusive and defriended me because I wouldn't let her have the last word. I wouldn't let her do what she does, which is be verbally kind of abusive and hostile and then expect nothing back because she's slightly retarded. I don't know what the deal is, but basically I wouldn't do that. And then, I was gone. Well, yeah, if keeping my integrity, and if you say something to me, I will respond, with accuracy, and you won't like it, okay? But I'm not going to back down. Because, see, I've done that my whole life. I've backed down. Well, not my whole life, but I've backed down and let people have their say and say, it doesn't matter, shining on. And I realize that, every time I've done that, you might call it forgiveness. I don't call it that. Because what happens is, a little bit of resentment builds up every time you let somebody else have their wrong say that you don't speak your piece, right? So I found that in some cases, you've got to state the truth and not let them have the last false word. Because if you do, there won't be forgiveness. In your heart, you'll have resentment and wish that you had pummeled them. The only way there's going to... So when I wouldn't back down with this Jezzy woman, she goes, "You're being rude to me." And I said, "No, I'm not being rude to you at all. I guess to people like you, it's being rude if I assert myself as a man, as a human being. But see, you're so used to bullying people and having your way and having your say that when someone stands up for themselves, to you, that's abusive. Even though there was no words directed at you, no swear words directed at you, no characterizations about you In fact, nothing, just asserting my truth now becomes abusive and grounds for dismissal. Well, fine, she dismissed me. In other words, I have balls here, okay? And I'm not going to just let some Jezzy cut him off in order to have peace and be loving and forgiving and not too judgmental in Christ. You know, too many women right now just have, it's almost like a reaction to feeling like they were held down, and now on Facebook they have their chance to have their say, and so they're going to browbeat all the men. You don't have to be like that. You don't have to make up for lost time or for all the abuse you've taken under men, you think, because you never had your say, being a homemaker or whatever. A fine profession, by the way. I have a deep respect for men and women in general. Not for the things the flesh wants to do in all of us, but in general, I have respect. And I have enough respect for myself not to, take abuse. Which sometimes means nothing to do with you, but asserting myself. And you know what? You can always tell the codeps and the abusers and the people like that, because when you assert yourself, they feel threatened. They feel like you're abusing them if you state your piece and then restate it or emphasize it in some way. I was told I was rude. No, I know this is I know this is a little tiny petty issue, but for me it really wasn't, because I knew that if I asserted myself, then there would be a friendship gone. Check. That is exactly what happened on cue, the way I predicted it. But for me, weighing the two sides, it was more important to state the truth and to state my opinion, and even including my opinion, that this person wanted you to, she would say, okay, that's wrong what you said about God. This is the way God is. And then I would just give you the conversation in general terms, not exact. This is what God is. And I'm like, no, he's not. Sorry, you're wrong on that. You're being rude, Zeph Daniel. No, I'm not being rude. I'm stating the truth. Well, no, this is the truth. So, right? So that's it, no front. That's the abuse and then I was called abusive for sticking up for myself, for stating my opinion, my word, to a Jezebel spirit. That is considered abusive. In other words, if you don't deliver your balls on a platter to these women and submit on this earth, wherever they are, and they're all over the earth, so they run the churches, they run politics, you know what I mean? They're the sisterhood, okay? Anyone that asserts that they've got a pair, whatever, and I'm saying this, in a euphemistic way, like, we all have a pair, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm talking about courage, honor, integrity, that sort of thing. So it's men and women. And women can probably relate to this more than men, but how often is it that if you state your piece and hold your integrity, that there's rejection? If you walk in truth in Jesus Christ, you're going to assert yourself and your opinion, right? You're not backing down from that. And when you do, there's rejection. And being in Christ makes it all the much more powerful, because it's not just now you've got God in you. And if you go against that or let somebody push you around in terms of your word or go silent, then it's insulting of what's inside you. Then it's the same thing as becoming a eunuch. That's exactly what it is. Becoming a eunuch at the hands of Jezebel. If Jezebel could have done some surgery on Elijah, she would have. That's every Jezebel I've ever run into. There's one that was classic, that was around for a while. One of the worst human beings I'd ever met in my life. One of the worst, a stealth Jezebel. Okay? And what she would do is she would ingratiate herself with, say, Zeph report people, and, sometimes we'd gather, and, like, she's really on the inside track, and she's family along with us, blah, 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 and butter everybody up. Oh, you're so great, Brother Thomas. Oh, you're so great, Zeph. Your music is so anointed, and you're that kind of sickening stuff, right? And then, in the same breath, because I collaborate with a friend who at one time was on the other side. In other words, we were at odds with each other because of this woman who was saying one thing to one and one thing to the other. And she does this with everybody. She was doing this with, people like Russ Dizdar and Quayle versus that, going to every, like, if there was a radio talk show guy that had a guest on, she would then go to the guest, ingratiate herself, and eventually go to the guest and say, the host is abusing me, to say, and then the guest wouldn't go back on that show because she'd sown discord, you see. Anyway, she went all over the net doing this. And for all I know, she's still doing it. And feeds off it. Very skinny girl, and she feeds off this. And the kind of person that they come back and go, I'm sorry, and it'll never happen again, if she gets busted. And then everyone goes, oh, it's okay, because we're with Jesus and we forgive, see? That's the Christ-like thing to do, right? Not on your life! Jesus does not make fools. Once that spirit, always that spirit. These are psychopaths. Keeping on forgiving will only repeat the torment and the heartbreak, the betrayal especially, the lies, the slander behind your back, and the false witness. And these are the kind of people who will also, if a man scorns them, in other words, they make a sexual advance and the guy shuns it and walks on, they'll scream rape and take it all the way to the court until that guy's in jail. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, but even Satan isn't as powerful as a psychopath woman scorned. A Jezebel woman scorned, it's to the death, baby. These are unredeemable. These are not of God. And they never will be. And until so many of you have been so brainwashed and that's, I guess, why I'm here. And me too, I've been brainwashed. But it's all because I would not assert what I knew to be true. And I allowed someone else to speak their piece and let it get in there without a rebuttal, without stating what I knew was true, because I didn't want to inconvenience myself or others, because I didn't want to be cut from the group. Go along to get along a little bit while the resentment builds, because God will never tolerate that in you. Better to assert yourself and let him kill you. Anyway, that's what all this, that's what Braveheart was about, the movie. To another sense, The Patriot. In other words, at what point do you stop backing down? It even can go to the geopolitical or even the war on the ground situation. At what point do you punch back at the bully? Well, that's a question that no one can answer as far as the country and corruption, but I'll just say this. Those who embrace this situation are despicable, irredeemable, and I guarantee you, 1,000%, there will never, in this lifetime, be repentance on their part, who embrace the tyrannical, globalist government takeover situation, whatever you want to call it, there is no one, and I'll state this before Richard Wurmbrand, who was so loving and gave everyone a pass because he saw guards who were communists come to the Lord. I'm not saying there won't be the exception. And what he didn't realize in his writings is when he wrote about that one guard, he wrote about one guard out of thousands. So, so obviously he wasn't, down for the cause. But in other words, people that would naturally have a tendency to go to government today are people that would like to lord it over you and make you submit. They're these kind of people, these kind of psychopath people. And they want to get control over other people, so there's their avenue. And they want to punish you if you don't conform to their mind, to what they think their mind should be. And what's wrong with the men? Well, we don't have really men in Christ in this country because most of them, Jezebel already, no, when you conform, listen up. And you people that were mated by the system and all that, and you tune in every once in a while, listen up. You didn't conform on your own because they beat you down. You conformed because she took your balls. That's the only way that you men can characterize it. You know, it's metaphor, but it makes sense. You on your own did not conform yourself to the connected global system where we can all get along now. Well, we can be happy now. So glad you saw it our way, son. You know, now the bullying can stop. The pressure can stop. You cried uncle, and you made the right choice, just like the rest of us. But anyone goes against me, Jezebel is who it is, then I, the world, am the woman scorned. And all hell will be on your head if you don't conform and do what I say. It's coming from Jezebel. So you men that want your balls back, she's got them. Rather than getting angry at the word or me or something like that or the truth, do what you can. It's like the Geico commercial. Yes, she's a witch. That's right. The witch has your balls because your wife wanted it that way, because then you see she could be assured of having an income from you. And then you marvel over how corrupt the world is. It's just a reflection of you, brother. It's you. The world is you. Externalized. It's a mirror, my friend, of you. If you don't like what you see, then make a change rather than fighting everybody that doesn't agree with you. Yeah, but you see corruption. Yes, I see corruption in the world, and I stated my piece about America after the election, and the king who was retracted as possibly the Antichrist and all that. But now I realize, as we look closely, see, we never commit. I knew not to commit. I knew to keep my powder dry. I knew there was a great exploration. How many characteristics Obama has too, in particular the book of Daniel. But then there's other people that also have those characteristics. The beast has many heads, or several if you like. People keep saying this is that time of the book of Revelation. I'm like, well, not necessarily. So therefore we're going to be raptured. No, not necessarily. But if you don't agree with me, then you're not really a believer. Yep, thank you. I know you, Jezebel. You took over the Christian church. You, Jezebel, are the head of the rapture theory. You, Jezebel, are the helm. You're the creator of the rapture theory. It comes from you, Jezebel. It comes from you. It was a way for you to get control of their balls, to make them submit, to give to you their allegiance. Yes, the rapture theory was a good sales tool to get people in church to conform, to be of one mind to Jezebel, which is every church I've been to, Jezebel running it. I have never seen an exception. Never. Oh, it's the little wife behind the scenes, somewhere. And men too could have the Jezebel spirit, it spreads. But basically you're a coward, you better submit, you better conform, and or else all hell will break out on your head. That's all it is. That's all Jesus is talking about in his word. Speaking of which, I have some word to share with you. And I don't know why I have to keep chasing this Bible around the house. It's just, it's the state of my own lack of organization. And I'm sorry. Anyway, I have it in hand now. Yes, chasing it around that, like the elusive Bible, it gets away. Because why? Because I'm sure that the Lord doesn't want that word shared. It's always... Yeah, I haven't downloaded it to my new iPad yet, but... and where's this light? I need a light to see. Thank you. I need light to see. Thank you. I turned right to what I wanted. Revelation 2. Okay? Beginning about verse 20. Revelation 2, verse 20. 220, baby. 22. Double that, you get 4:4. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed to idols. All metaphor. Fornication. You don't literally sleep with this. You're talking about a spirit here. So fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. That term means to do any and all abominations that would be considered anathema to God in the presence of God for the purpose of taking control of these people from God and giving it to Jezebel. I gave her space to repent for her fornication. That's spiritual wickedness in high places. And she repented not. No, Satan is not going to repent. Thank you. Behold, I will cast her into a bed, and them that commit adultery with her into great tribulation, except they repent of their deeds. Well, there you go. And the message to the churches in the book of Revelation is not specifically to these churches today. Let me explain what I mean. The book of Revelation is talking to a time before, to the time of the Roman Empire. And then, just like in the book of Daniel, it can be applied to today, but it's not exactly one for one. Which blows the theory of 90% of the Bible prophecy ministries out there. No. The book of Revelation, my revelation is this. When you come to the churches in the book of Revelation, when it speaks to you, all the churches are just basically another word for humanity. The different institutions out there, not just churches, it's all the organizations of man. We would call them churches because they have, and then there's this Church of Philadelphia, which would be basically those that do not sleep with Jezebel and or conform to the world system. And there is no such thing as that church on earth. There are people that fit the category of Philadelphia, but they're scattered throughout the earth here and there and having their own problems. I've talked to a guy that just feels like he's a victim of everything. And he just prays for the day he can die and go home because people keep picking on him. They won't stop. Yes, bullying is a big part of what they do. The United States government is quite a bully and has the attitude of no compassion whatsoever when it comes to people. They simply use their influence to buy votes. Like the Hispanic population is now 70% behind Obama. 70%. That's the highest rating. I mean, he has gone after the minorities. He's as popular, even more popular than Ronald Reagan was with conservatives, so Obama is. who is, that's the Jezebel spirit, right? Valerie Jarrett, Michelle O, and all that. The Chicago Bill Ayers group. It's all sorry to say this, women, I mean no disrespect, but it's this satanic female spirit, okay? It's not, men, when they're in the right position with God, when they actually are allowed to are potentially, ultimately very, the most godly people, really, in a sense, but so few because they're not allowed to be that. I just think that the sisterhood does not want ever again a man, gender-wise, this is the gender war here, to be head of any church. As long as Jezebel's at the head, and she's at the head of all churches today, as long as she's at the head, then you see it's the perfect satanic deception. And church becomes a conforming mechanism for society. All is well. And this is the most idiotic thing that I have ever heard in my life. The fact that we even have to talk about this, that people have to be reminded. It was like the Geico commercial. This witch is flying around on a broom. You've seen that? And this guy's sweeping up there at this company in a factory. And she demands the broom from the guy. She doesn't like her broom. He just gives it to her. And then he tells his friend, I'm going to stand up to her. And he goes, no, you're not. And that's what we've all done, including me. I mean, I'm not setting myself out as any kind of example. I've done plenty of bowing down and eating garbage and holding, my tongue. I mean, even not knowing that I had been, for the sake of not wanting to stir up the waters and not wanting to cause division. So every time I've done that, I've conformed. I've sold out. And someone may have a different opinion than me about things in life. I know they have had different opinions of me than in terms of the Lord Jesus and freedom. And they've stated that they don't need Jesus. They have a direct DSL line to God. And God guides them every day. And they've got their money, and they've got their God, and they've got their health, and they're content. I know a lot of people in that category, and I don't give them trouble. It doesn't mean I've got to go around and say, you better do this or you're not saved. I don't know what God's doing. I look at everybody as you're here, and the corruption's being burned off for a purpose, and it will be burned off us all. Because when you get to be an old man or woman, the lust is gone, the wisdom comes in, the ability to be patient and keep your powder dry. The hotheads are youth. When you're young, you fight back, and you shoot first, ask questions later. When you get older, you tend to be more analytical and more patient. And, it's lust becomes an intellectual thing, something of the eyes, rather than the flesh wanting, yearning. If I could only have the right girl, or, whatever, look at that girl on TV, if I could only have her, whatever. That's all lust, and that's all a sin. Or, ogling a girl's legs or boobs or whatever from a heterosexual male perspective, which I know is becoming more rare. They'd like to make it extinct, of course, because that's Jezebel. She only wants gay guys. That's it. It's so simple. If you want to understand the way the United States is run, is the people in power now do not want, and the culture war is united in one thing. We must take the testosterone away from males and give it to the female. We must have Jezebel take all the men's testicles, like confiscation of guns. We have to confiscate those testicles which is a metaphor for courage and honor and integrity. Okay, so I know it's a base metaphor, but it just really seems appropriate. So they want to confiscate balls like confiscating guns. Okay, same reason. And then they want everyone conform. No one's going to get into the New World Order, says David Spangler, without a Luciferian initiation. Well, you don't have to worry about the United States then, because most everyone has had a Luciferian initiation, which is why the freedom is gone, the taxes are high. Everything that you see is a manifestation of the choices we've all made. It's a reflection of us. So that's how I can look at the government. No, I'm not advocating any. Look, I'm an old man. I'm becoming an elder now. So I'm the person that sits around the campfire that people say, well, what do you think? And everyone listens, you know. It's more like that at this point. The government is not. I absolutely disagree with Alex Jones and people like that about going to war with the government. We're going to expose these evil people. He's not evil. I'm not evil. We're all evil. The government is a reflection of Alex Jones, of what's going on inside him and what's going on inside of me, Zeph Daniel. It's a reflection of us. It's karma. We are reaping what we have already sown. As Obama said, you know, Congress racked up all these bills. I just want them to pay for it, so we got to raise revenue. But, you know, he's really thinking in his mind, we don't want private property because that's too much of a, you know, male thing. We need confiscation and big mommy government, mommy Jezebel to have all the men, and the best way is to turn them gay so that, you know, and effeminized, and gay so they have a place to go with their testosterone, not to women. And holy moly, man, you know, I saw this. I had a vision of this when I was a child, when I was 5. I had a vision of the world. I was 5 and I was on an island. And part of this may be an abuse memory as well. But I'm on this island. It's filled with women. You know, buxom, big tits, you know, wearing, you know, clothed. It was a tropical island, but, you know, all clothed. No naked women. But, you know, with youth and great sexual attributes, I would say. You know what I mean? And I suppose that when I was 5, I guess, for me, mother and women with sexual attributes, even at a young age, I was just fascinated with all that. So, and what they were doing is, boys would arrive, you know, like me and others and whatnot, you know, and were made to strip all our clothes off. We were not allowed to have clothes on in front of the women. No, I know there's a whole stack of reasons that dream could be, but no, this was a nightmare that was never forgotten ever. And no, before you start getting into a sexualized thing, I know there's a big excitement in porn regarding clothed women and naked men being in company together. So this is a psyche thing. This is something shared by many men, let's put it that way, as a fantasy. So I'm 5, and it feels, and I'm feeling humiliated and ashamed in a way. But then that's competing with the allure of these women and feeling drawn and wanting to take my clothes off to be, you know, I don't want to just be thrown out in the sea. But my vision turns out to be genetic. In other words, our DNA has been, the reason there's a porno industry is because our DNA has been tweaked and people are ashamed to be public with their desires because they're so perverse. So the porno is like this safe place to go where they can express those desires of, you know, men being women and women being men, and power trips and all the, you know, all the kind of circus acts that go on which would look hilarious to a Martian. I mean, it would just be like, wow, why do they do that? They dress up in leather and they whip each other, and they have all because it's the taboo, it's the opposite, and so I suppose that was the ultimate male being dominated by female fantasy, I suppose. But it was this dream. It was ominous because the dream really becomes a metaphor for the world. The island was the world. The women were really the people who control the world. The boys stripping down naked is the equivalent of initiation, a Luciferic initiation into the world system, which is not called a Luciferic initiation, but just a coming of age initiation. And it was instructional as to how the world works, which is the real nature of the world and of government and of kingdoms is that everything is a queendom. All of the world is basically a female-dominated situation. The Western civilization and Eastern civilization, all the same, including Muslim civilization and Hindu civilization, which had been looked at to be male chauvinist. Not at all. Behind the scenes, and all the rape and the things they rape little girls in both Islamic countries and in Hindu countries, they're Hindu less and less, Islam more and more. But I mean, this idea that the real problem is raping little girls. And I might add to that, no, not just little girls, little boys too. But it's more prominently seen there, but the distribution, I think you'll find, is about the same. In the West, it's covered. Pedophilia is a big thing. So at the same time as I had that dream, obviously there were also initiation rituals going on around me, and including me, to have become part of the... And that was a part of it. Well, I resisted it in the dream, finally. I mean, ultimately, I didn't give in to it. And obviously resisted it when they were organizing rituals where adults and children were having sex together. As it was more of an initiation rite. It was training. It wasn't like a random thing. It was organized. And it was global and social and a network. And the people that ran the network were the honchos of society, not a strange pervert here and there that's doing time for pedophilia. No, it was not like that at all. And it really wasn't about pedophilia either. It was all about what's inside you submitting to the women on the island. Which, well, I balked at it. I didn't want to give up my control. I guess I was like a control freak by then because I was just really, whatever. But I was, it became a nightmare rather than a sexual release dream. You can have I was sexualized at 5. I was already masturbating at 5. That's not normal. I mean, not just feeling around and all that. It was just, I was sexualized then and didn't come into having my dream, if you will, until I was like, 12 or something. And I was, none of that could be really in that way unless there was manipulation at an even earlier age and indoctrination and, the official pedophile network or whatever it is. Unless all that was going on, no, I wouldn't have been feeling that way. And then that caused me to be filled with shame and guilt over having any kind of sexual desire at all. And that took a lifetime, doing a lifetime of damage to me. In other words, I mean, it took a lifetime to be able to work it out. And as far as it is now, is I walk with the Lord and in the Spirit. And that's really, that's where my heart was then. I was completely in contact or being protected by the Lord. He protected me. But along with that came shame and guilt as a retribution by Jezebel to any boy or any girl who at that age won't conform. And let me explain to you perverts out there who advocate conformity at all costs. Let me explain what conformity meant then. It meant not just serving adults as a 5-year-old or letting them, pummel you in any way possible, but also agreeing to be a sacrifice, as in bloodletting. You still you're still proud of you? You're proud of yourselves now? And you know damn well I'm right, because you've seen a lot of your friends here and there go mysteriously because they're sending you a message. You stay the course, just like the Geico commercial. You stay the course. Am I upsetting you now? No need to be upset. This was going on long before you were born. The deep, dark secret of this world and why they have secret societies is to cover up pedophilia and ritual sacrifice, and their occultic practices to use those things as devices to get to the stars and to the gods, to their gods. And it's run by Jezebel, and it's a queendom. There is no kingdom, and it's not a man's world, and never has been. The James Brown song, "It's a Man's World," is some sort of joke. Just shows James Brown as being a fool. No, I know he's a fool, but I mean, he was going by biblical principles. He was going by how he was taught. It's a man's world, but it's not. It's overtly, carnally, physically looks like men are up front. But the real world is the world of spirit and the octaves of dimensions, everything that envelops this little tiny speck that isn't completely real. And all that other stuff is what's real. And in that realm, the controller of this planet is Jezebel, is a queendom, is a female supremacy. It's female in Satan connection, or I call it the sisterhood, which has been in movies. It's not hidden. It's not like what I'm saying is a hidden truth. But it is the reason they form secret societies, because there is power in these rituals, and there's power in occultic practices, and they all involve blood, whether it's animals or human or whatever. They require blood and sex and sperm and eggs, and desire. The desire is used in sex magic to, so people will get together and get the sexual desire that causes them to visualize what they want. And so it's not just about getting off. It becomes purposeful. Using the sexual, in tantrism, for example, they'll hold back the orgasm to keep building it and building it and building it, to keep visualizing what they want. And then in extreme practices, the men will hold the sperm and not let it go, even after that much stimulation, because they believe that it so focuses a person on the object of their desire that it must be given to them. And in witchcraft, it's all about that, right? That tantrism is witchcraft. There's no other term for it. Oh, they try to make it holy, and it's not holy. It's witchcraft. Witchcraft comes from below. Witchcraft is feminine. Comes from Satan. The alliance of Satan, Jezebel. And then it becomes Isis and Osiris, right? Osiris and his mother. It's Madonna and child. It's the Catholic Church. I could go on, but the imagery that we have is astounding. It's like, oh, when you men, when will you come home to mama and strip down naked, and be naked? I.e. sex with your mother. But it's not sex with your mother, it's a ritual. It's the desire to come home. There's actually a virtuous desire there. to the Satanist or the occultist or the spiritualist, there is no perversion. Those things would not be called perversions. Whether it be, doing the taboo thing, there's a great deal of power. So if it's a gay guy, they might have him, sleep with a woman. But if it's a straight guy, they'll have him who's deathly afraid or deathly offended by homosexuality. That's exactly the ritual that they will conjure at that point, because there's so much power in it, in the release of that violation. And so to a greater extent, violation is the only way. Bloodletting is not literally bloodletting all the time. It's violating that line, that taboo, for power and sexual excitement, which is then used to focus on what they want, along with chanting and drum beating and whatever else. Goes back to primitive man. Man realized he could drum and he could fornicate and not just have it for producing a baby, but use it for an extreme magic that would bring about and eventually bring about social acceptance and prosperity at the expense of the rest of the world that suffers. There must always be a great deal of have-nots to support these haves, who themselves are given over to this reality. But they can't exist. It's like they have to kick everyone off the ladder. It's just like Lucifer must kick everyone off the pyramid to really be supreme. They can't share power. So ultimately, Shakespeare's genius in Hamlet, yes, they ultimately turn their swords on each other. That is exactly what happens. And that's why I'm not going to sit back and say, oh, this is it exactly. What you see right now in Washington, this is the way it'll be. No, I'm not waiting for the rapture. I am simply waiting. I'm waiting until they turn the knives on each other. Because in corrupt circles, that always happens. I mean, it may be rare. It looks like China's been there a long time with their structure and other places, and they're just as corrupt. But it happens. You might have to wait for it. But it happens. In other words, what you see in Washington right now, the reflection of you and me, except for those people that are above it. They say, no, the left and the right, they're both the same. I'm going to sit here and wait for the rapture. Okay. Those people, it's a reflection of them too, even though they're in denial about their own selves. They're trying to get purified before the Lord's coming. I'm like, what? You can't try to get pure. That's like saying, I'm trying to get pregnant. You either are or you aren't. I'm purified by the blood of the Lamb. Amen? Right now, this moment, I'm ready. Lord, come. Because of you, I'm ready. Not because of me. But then that gets violated. The Jezebel spirit, you see, is the spirit of the rapture. It's Jezebel. It's a deception. And you can prove this, because if you don't conform, I mean, conformity has many levels. It's whatever's going on. It's when in Rome, It could be you stand on your head and say, beeswax 4 times. In our culture, it's satanic ritual abuse, which is not called abuse. It's just it's the control of bloodletting and sperm. I mean, I hate to put it in crass terms, but that's, of testosterone, right? Of that energy force. So that's why the collectivists want everyone on the same page. And ultimately, what they really like is to make eunuchs out of literal eunuchs. I mean, this is, if it keeps going, there would be a society of eunuchs that would be doing the work, work that they wouldn't want to do. But they would castrate them. And this was something Jezebel loves to do. I mean, literal castration, where there'd be certain humans selected for breeding, but they would do selective breeding, and they would love control over the breeding. But again, that's an exterior manifestation of something that's within us already as a disease. The thing that God has to cure. When Jesus is inside you, guess what? I mean, how can we talk about all this stuff? The only way I could deliver you a message about these deep principles of truth. And these dangerous areas of taboo, sexual perversion, humanity, philosophy, is if somehow I had an anointing on me, because otherwise, talking about all this stuff, I would get stimulated. And then I would feel ashamed. You see? I would become part of the problem. And that's why, cut some of these men some slack. They can't talk about all this stuff because they would get them stimulated. Then they'd be ashamed to be stimulated over talking about something that is clearly evil and a taboo. Now just imagine, the rumors on the internet that Obama watches films of the drone attacks, and he watches them over and over, drone footage of people getting killed, not just with drone attacks, but, just war. And he gets off on it it's his own personal snuff films. Friends, I told you about this back in 2002, didn't I? They've been doing, this is nothing new. You accuse him of that, and this snuff film thing has been going on forever. And they'll watch a Benghazi thing go down, and they'll just start having intercourse with each other right on the table in front of the TV screen. I mean, I've seen that. I've seen that sort of thing. So why should that be shocking news to anyone that the president is going over the footage of his kills and having bloodlust, meaning that it sexually excites him to see that sort of thing? That's common in humanity. And he watches it over and over. That's something he probably didn't get to do before he was president. But there's a lot of these perverts out there that are doing that kind of thing. And what can I do about it? This idea of having arranged hits, watching the footage of Kennedy getting his head blown off over and over and ejaculating to that is a common practice among humans. I don't know why you would be shocked that the president or a senator or somebody in a position of power would look at footage from war and horror and masturbate to it. To me, that seems perfectly normal. In other words, if you're a human, you're capable of that sort of thing. Maybe that's not your taste right now, but it could be. If you really had a lust for power, then there's nothing more powerful than having enemies that you arranged to kill, watching them be killed, and ejaculating during the killing at the height of pleasure, which then will reinforce it for next time. Meaning you'll do more killing because it's more, because you're serving that sex drive. It knows that the only way it's going to really get off is by hurting someone else, and then you really have an orgasm. So that's really, really, really going to be the thing. That's much better than women, or men in his case. Which, having bisexual or homosexual leaders with families in LA, that was pretty much the norm. I don't bat an eye at that. Do you? I mean, we shouldn't. We shouldn't bat an eye at the idea that we have all these householders and families and the men are bisexual. Why should that surprise anyone? In order to get into a position of power to begin with, as boys, they've been sodomized in order to climb the, you find out what the guy's perversion is, who has a position to help you, and you do whatever perversion he wants. It's just business. It's just humanity. It's just the common, ordinary thing that happens every day all over the world. Along with abortion is common. It's now normal to have a partial birth abortion. It's common. Human sacrifice, everyone agrees on it. If we didn't agree on it, it wouldn't be there. So obviously somewhere in us, I'm not talking about your vote, I'm talking about spiritually, somewhere in us, we agree with that the closer to birth that we can abort the fetus, the child, the better. Because that's the height of sexual excitement. But you can trace all war and bloodletting itself to sexual drive, to the sex drive. Stanley Kubrick did in Dr. Strangelove. All the imagery was a penis and a vagina, beginning with the very beginning. And the nuclear bomb was the ultimate orgasm. It was all about the male sex drive being the cause of war. That's what the film was about. And we blush, don't we, like little schoolboys, huh? That's something we should know all too well. What the rock groups are all singing about was basically sexual perversion, you know, the ladder, the thing, the hierarchy, the norm, the majority, the big wide path. They were just singing about submitting to Jezebel in exchange for being part of the group. And then we can go around and see the bulldogs who bark instead of conform, and then we can make fun of them, like we were made fun of before we got the message and before Jezebel took care of us. I know a couple of you are so mad you could just kill me. Me, the messenger. Me who loves you. Me who's kind. Me who's more getting to be older and wizened a bit. Me who would not harm a hair on your head. Little old me would bother you. And I'm old enough to be like your father or your coach in life. Jesus, it's all about him. You know, I can say, you know, that hookup. Jesus will never tolerate in a zillion years. He'll tolerate we're sinners. We need him to forgive us from sin, but he'll never tolerate acquiescing to Jezebel. Ever. Jesus is the fulfillment of the Elijah spirit. And you saw the way Elijah, all you got to do is read the Bible to find out how swimmingly Elijah and Jezebel got along. You know, and Elijah knew that she would come to an end. And she was eventually, you know, nothing, like garbage, be eaten by the dogs. And every Jezebel spirit that I've ever seen goes up in flames before the end of their lives. Whether it's disease or something takes them out. No, not the men. The men are too afraid to stand up to her. You saw the Geico commercial, didn't you? There's no way. And Jezebel is the world witch. All Jezebels are witches. All witches are Jezebels. There is a philosophical statement of logic. If all witches are Jezebels, are all Jezebels witches? The answer is yes. It's a logical consistency. And Jezebel is the power of the world. When one conforms, you conform to Jezebel, or the island of women. And how exciting is it for boys to take their clothes off and be around and be coddled and fondled and teased and toyed with and observed and adored by all these women. Someone might say to me, well, Brother Z, that sounds like a paradise. Oh, yes, but if you try to put your clothes back on, they kill you. Oh, well. Oh. Yeah, you got to get your mind out of your flesh, dude. You're flesh. You guys are flesh. You're all about the flesh. You never think in the spirit. You never go in the spirit. You can't be alone, can you, for like 5 minutes and let yourself go. When I'm around people that want to do a ritual, when I have been, I just go into the spirit, you know. And I let God just take me where he will, or let me say what he wants to, because I'm not going to do the ritual. You know, I made a stand against serving Satan. And so, you know, basically it would be like Jesus when he was in the midst of them, and you just pass right through, you know. You love them. We don't hate them. I don't hate any. Look, all the people that I loved as a boy were Satanists, were on the satanic side. And they had love in their heart. Most of them, I would say, were just lost and addicted, and they couldn't get out of their addiction. And so the only thing you can do if they have a heart for God and they're stuck there is just minister to them unto death, because you can expect they're going to keep that allegiance to the devil and the cowardliness to Jezebel. They're going to keep that all the way into the grave. But see, The problem is when you get to your deathbed, Jezebel and Satan and all those unholy angels and all that power abandons you. You're all alone there with the aliens picking at you. Yep, aliens. That's exactly what you encounter in that state, going from this life to death. And they control you. They take your soul and they manipulate it. And they might stick it in another body like reincarnation. But you don't go on to the Lord or to the kingdom of God or emancipate. You're kind of recycled back into the system. Oh no, you don't die. And then there's a lot of people that want to be recycled back into the system. They thought this was so great, they want another go. But the reason I believe we have shame over sex is so we won't find out the power of sex. As long as we're ashamed of our bodies, which occurred in the Garden of Eden, I mean, it's normal for man to be ashamed of his body. The only way you get unashamed of your body is when you admit you're ashamed of it. When you're ashamed of your body, and you're ashamed when do you see guys walking around with erections sticking through their pants? Well, some of you do. But at the supermarket where there's kids and stuff? No. Due to shame, he'll try to, he'll face the aisle. No, try to conceal that, right? Because the most comfortable thing to do, I'm going to be gross here, so the most comfortable thing for a man to do, especially if he's well endowed, would be to open his zipper and let it stick out, and walk around with his erection sticking out of his pants. It's a perfect extension. That way there'd be no pressure on it. That's just gross, Trish. Can you imagine? No, I can see Frankie laughing his butt off right now. It's like he's done it again. It's just like the fat women in the classroom. No, it's with the approval of all the women who are in their nice clothing, doing their shopping, acting like it's perfectly normal for these men to be walking around with these erections, and then when the erection goes back down, they tuck it back in. Okay, that's the island. That's the thing that's wanted. That's the New World Order. That's the men being forced by Jezebel to, that's conformity right there. That's a visual, boy, an artist would have a time. If you painted that painting of, say, all these, the most Jezebels we see is at Whole Foods Market. So Whole Foods is, more women are Jezebels per capita than anywhere else. So let's just say it's at Whole Foods with all these upscale rich people, or people that think they're rich or whatever it is. And that this was normal. So the inverse is, so a guy comes along who doesn't want to let his fancy flow. He doesn't want to let that erection stick out and while he's pushing his shopping cart. Immediately, the women gather and jump on this guy and beat his head in. Now, why would they do that? Because he's threatening their power. Because if all the men pulled in, right, then they would have the power and the women wouldn't. Because that's a Jezebel trick, isn't it? And that's where their power comes from. It can only come from the agreement to serve her. When you agree to serve her, the world becomes your oyster. They'll leave you alone. It's just all about that. That is all about what Jesus is about. People keep I'm sinning today. Oh, you shut up. I don't care what you sin about. It's natural for you to sin. So shut up. What I'm talking about is the nitty-gritty of the entire purpose of God and you and the world and it and all of this and the Bible. The essence of it all. As gross as that may seem to you, that is the essence, the very beginning, the genesis of it all. Of all reality that you experience. As embarrassing as that is to admit, That is our reality. And those who stay tucked in and go against Jezebel, they become what? Yes, they become the perverts. You're a pervert if you tuck it in, and if you let it go, you're emancipated. Otherwise, you're a dirty pervert. That is 100% backwards from reality. But there are people, and I've known many, who believe that that is exactly the correct interpretation of the reality we face, and that the acquiescence to Jezebel, the conformity, etc., is exactly the way that people must behave and be in their hearts. See, but it's not external behavior. You can be one of those guys that walks around with your erection, but be internally not okay with it. These people are called prodigals. Well, I like ratings, and, by having a message like this, I'm sure this will be passed all over the internet before we're done, and it'll be popping up in various areas. And it'll be like people saying, can you believe how crazy he is? It's like, no, you're listening to it because this is what's on your mind. This is what's bothering you. You can't quite get comfortable with Jezebel's demand at the old market, can you? It's got nothing to do with sex or nakedness or your dick. It's got nothing to do with that. It has to do with, what's inside you. That's right. It's got to do with your guts, with how you're made. If Satan can convince you by you being virtuous, you're a pervert, like, you ever seen that guy Dan Savage, the gay blogger that's very activist and is really hostile toward heterosexuals or conservatives or anybody like that that's connected to the Bible or anything like that? He wants to pin you down and rape you, and because he wants all that pent-up desire that secretly you have to really do that, to come out, and then he wants to tell you it's okay. And to a certain extent, Dan is right. The whole world is really, in a sense, like that. But then again, the spirit is not like him. In other words, he's right about the carnal, fallen nature of man secretly wanting to do those things that he resists. Yes, well, Dan, you're right on that. What you're wrong about or ignorant about is you do not see the spirit at all, in any way, shape, or form, which is, in a sense, I don't call him a pervert because he's going with his desire. He's doing what most people do. But what threatens him, what threatens him is what threatens Jezebel. He's just a male embodiment of Jezebel. He's like a male Jezebel. What threatens Dan Savage, the gay blogger, is what he hates. The Bible, the idea of God, the idea of Judeo-Christian morality, any kind of conservative truth, because conservative truth all comes from the Bible. The Bible is conservative, if you will. It's radical, but it's conservative. In other words, being a good steward to the earth, not having, not going and having sex with a neighbor's wife because you lust after her. And then Jesus take it further. He says you cannot, in your mind, lust after her because that's as if you've done it. So what Jezebel would say is, it's okay to have all those desires. I will teach you how to get what you desire. You want the neighbor's wife? I'll show you. If you give to me, you do what I tell you, you'll be sleeping with that wife before you know it. And it'll be just all right, because there'll be no strings attached. You won't have to babysit her when she gets lonely. You can just go have sex anytime you like. Well, your bank accounts will be full. I'll teach you how to get everything you want, so long as you bow down to me. I'll teach you the secret of the world. The mystery of the world is, it's Jezebel. It's a queendom. And how many men have fornicated with her? When it says fornicated with Jezebel, it's talking about conformity to the world system of Satan. That's all. It's initiation. Period. It's nothing else. That's all it is. And people fornicate with Jezebel, whoredom, spiritual whoredom, if you will, in order to be those, Babylon 18 merchants and movers and shakers of the world. They've all fornicated with her. Any virgin among them, they would force them to fornicate or throw them out. The act of fornicating with Jezebel is the act of losing one's soul, because your truth that's in you is now gone. It's now acceptable for you to do anything, actually. But walking around with your thing out there in the store to the approval of Jezebel would be, a metaphor for everything. In other words, it would cease. That which was taboo no longer is. That's how you know you've lost your soul. When you have no shame and no guilt, you're a psychopath and you've lost your soul. When you justify doing evil things to people, lying and cheating them out of what's rightfully theirs, if you're empowered to do that, then, oh well, you're going to have to answer for it. It doesn't mean you can't repent and feel sorry one day, but I mean, this is like Bernie Madoff. Remember what he did to his people and the various people out there. They have no guilt, no shame. A lot of criminals in jail, same thing. So conforming to Jezebel leads to, karmic consequences. If you lose thy soul, and up is down and down is up, and there's no shame over anything, you will be eventually visited with extremely bad luck. Like a Bernie Madoff. It's a perfect example. Your streak will come to an end. And when you look for her, mommy who took care of you, who gave you all the gifts, who enabled you to go out and tear it up and become a winner out there, she won't be found. She won't be found. Anyway, once again, and in language that you can understand, you were given the breadth and width and height and depth of the world situation in a nutshell, that was spoken perfectly. And if you don't think at the end of that there's a problem, if you don't think that we collectively, that's all of us, have a problem here, then you don't understand what I was talking about. When it gets to the point where the nation loses its soul, which is done by the majority of people agreeing and bowing to Jeze, when that happens, the nation collapses into war, and that's where you see the real atrocities. The internment of the Japanese, Nagasaki, Hiroshima, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. And then it may even come here to America. And don't think that the enemies of America wouldn't like to get here with hammers and tongs and cut you to shreds. Yes, they would. And they'd eat your flesh and come back for seconds. And there are people here trying to open the gates to that very thing, that are posing themselves as your protectors, who are in the bed with the enemies who want to tear you apart. And they're just saying, oh, just lower the barrier a little more, and you'll be fine. I'll take care of you. I just want to kill all your people and take all the land. Okay, so that seething nature of all this comes from Jezebel. It comes from this very thing of boys and girls, power. By the time you're coming of age, the die is cast, the table is set, and it will go that way for your life. That's why I've been such a stickler, against sort of the Billy Graham style of evangelism. I've been, my interpretation of the Bible and God's Word goes to Jesus' teaching, wheat and tares, sheep and goats. I'm, always open for that rare exception. I go to the Lord and say, Lord, is this one, should I, but in general, the answer is always coming back no. In other words, the table is set by the time a child's 12, 13 years old. It just is what it is. Okay? So it's not like people can really, how shall I put it? It's not like anyone can do anything, you know? And you say, well, it's not right to condemn people to hell. It's like, no, I'm not condemning anyone to hell. I'm just saying what is, what God has made here so you understand. As far as hell goes, or punishment, that there's always going to be punishment for, if you're hell-bent in that direction, then hell would be perfect for you. You should feel right at home there. I mean, they're trying to make hell come upon the earth, so it's all hell and no heaven here. You know, when I was younger, it was kind of a mixed bag for me, but now I see it's kind of all hell and no heaven. And that's an unnatural state because we have a thing called equilibrium between opposites in nature. So right now we're due for a huge swing the other way. And to me, that can mean war, a purge, cleansing that which needs to be cleansed. And then the psychopaths are going, yeah, God's going to open a can of whoop ass, and they're sitting there behind their pulpits being psychopaths, cheering it on. Why would we cheer on our own destruction? Why is humanity inhumane to humanity? Why do we hurt our fellow man and our brother? Why do we steal from him that which we have no right to take? Why do we lust after the other man's wife? Why do we lust after power that the other guy has that we want, so we arrange our assassins to take him out? Or arrange a scandal so we can rise and he can go down, like politics? Why all this? Why do we look for an unsung man to kill so we can be a rock star like Roger? I think that Roger Daltrey may have committed murder. I think that was like, may have. I'm not even alleging it, really. I'm just saying, why would you put a lyric like that in your song? I'm going to define you, I'm going to drown. In other words, define you, Jezebel. To have that power, I will drown someone. Why would he actually say something like that unless he had done it? Why should I be a Who fan knowing, that the guy basically condones murder to be a rock star? In other words, he's willing to let blood, it's innocent blood. Unsung to me just means innocent, right? Someone not in that. So an unsung man, or boy, or a girl, to let their blood, because they're innocent, so that he can rise to power and rock stardom. That was at the height of their popularity when he wrote that back on the Who's Next album. And that whole song called Bargain was all about this topic we're talking about here today. In fact, it wasn't about it. I don't know if these guys ever did talk about anything outside their libidos and their drive for power. You know what I mean? They just basically, confessed what they were into and acted like they were preaching to other people to join them, but they don't want anyone to join them. They want to be the only rock star. They don't want competition. But then the Who fell from grace. And Bob Dylan fell from grace. They're legendary for what they've done. But where are they now? They themselves. Fading, fading, fading. Those who would kill to become rock stars, and there are plenty that have, will meet hell upon the earth before their death. And then, hell is where, in other words, when you say this is like hell upon the earth, that the leaders and the globalists are planning, it's like, yes, the desire of someone that truly serves Satan, Jezebel, would be to have tyranny, which is a physical form of hell, upon the earth. So tyranny would be hell on earth. And so that's what they would work for. The drones in the sky, the eye in the sky, being followed everywhere you go. And eventually, if you've seen or read the book 1984, highly recommended. There was a movie, there was a movie that came out back in the 80s, but I'm not sure that was a very good movie. But, I think it had Richard Burton in it. And, it was okay. It gives you the idea. of a hell, literal hell on earth. And they believe that if they create hell on earth, they will be rewarded. You know, they'll get to reign in hell. But so a Satanist would want to bring hell to earth, and a God-fearing person, a God guy, would want to bring what? Yes, heaven to earth. But what if you're the opposite? See, a sheep and a goat cannot merge. That's not even a good metaphor. It's like a human being and the illusion of a human being. You know, what's on the other side of the mirror, we can't say, but they are on the other side of the mirror and are a mere illusion. And I believe God uses them as a teaching tool for us. I think what he's doing there is he's basically, showing us how through our actions and decisions we can bring about hell on earth and great suffering. And the government we have today is all of our fault. It has to do with all of us. If they went to martial law and then to total tyranny, it would be our fault too. It wouldn't be them, the enemy, versus us, the good guys. It would be that, we needed God to help us and we didn't ask. And how do you get out of that conformity thing if you've been, conformed and trained by Jezebel? Well, if you feel any guilt about it at all, I suppose you're redeemable. Then you wouldn't be one. To be one of them, to be inhuman, you'd have to have no guilt. And it's not human. Guilt is put there as a governor for God so that you don't go off the rails. Once you've gotten rid of your conscience, then you're no longer human. And you will participate in bringing hell to earth for your own gain. You won't care who your gain hurts. And that's Jezebel's way. At first it's a war with maleness. That is, it's a war against the individual, those people that will do what they want to do with their members. Thank you very much. And those who will obey Jezebel because they like the perks. If you like the perks for crossing the line, and the line, is not obviously just a shame thing with your body and sex. It's obviously that I'm using as a metaphor to mean any taboo, anything that you'd be tremendously against. It's just that we're so hung up on sex that it becomes so much more powerful than talking about, I don't know, say like killing somebody or lying to somebody, typical Jezebel things. It's so much more powerful to talk about this idea of forced nakedness in front of clothed women in an open physical setting as almost like robots. And if someone doesn't have any shame about something like that, then probably they would be able to kill somebody. See what I mean? Or they're so much now in the hive mind, they have no will of their own. It's whatever the group does, they're going to do. And people that fall into that category usually, they don't change. But in that category are the vampires, right? So the vampires, in other words, the other thing about the Jezebel thing is, it's once you've done one thing, you've got to do 10 times more to stay in. To find you, I have to do all these. I got to run and never stop. In other words, in that Who song, they're saying they got to keep doing rituals to stay with her once they find her. What have you done for me lately? So you act up, or try to rebel, or try to get out of it. They have a hive mind, so they can hear your thoughts. They don't need to have microwave surveillance on you. They already know what you're thinking because you've given your power to the hive. It's like, how you give Facebook permission to know your location? You've given them permission to live in your mind. That's what these men would be to Jezebel. They would become like robots. And eventually, how you say, well, gosh, yeah, I know Uncle Sid, but there's nobody home. I mean, he just seems like he's like a robot. It's like, yeah, that can actually happen. That's a person, my friend, that's twice dead already. In other words, there's no one. His soul, his person is gone. What inhabits him is probably a demonic spirit that basically will function. No, he won't tear up the scenery. He won't be like Linda Blair in The Exorcist. He'll just go, he'll eat and he'll do, and he'll, be a servant of his master. And he'll quietly go about his business. But you'll try to talk to him and you realize the guy that I used to know there is no longer there. Yes, he does not inhabit that body anymore. That's why they did the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers, to talk about this reality. What happened to the ones that gave in to the body snatchers? They became what? A hive mind, right? They all became conformed, right? Jezebel ran it, especially the remake. It's just, the whole purpose of that movie was as a metaphor for our society, for this issue. And I would say that was probably a better metaphor than all the metaphors I've thrown at you. As a way to get at what this is. Another one is They Live. But the Invasion of the Body Snatchers is particularly powerful, even more so than the vampire movies. The vampire movies glamorize vampirism, which is in and of itself a mind control trick. The whole point is, a bloodsucker is someone that steals something that's not his, a life force from somebody else. Same with Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They steal souls. And everyone that's had their soul gone, they become part of the hive, and then they bully the individuals. The hive today in America will bully those of you who are individuals, who are keeping your integrity, keeping your self from their shenanigans. At your jobs and at your work, you might tend to feel targeted, because if they're the majority and you're not, they can easily start picking on you. Which is why you need the Lord's protection. And then the Lord might want you to go through that to toughen up. Kids on a playground, when there's a kid that's kind of the odd one out or the misfit, what do? They gang up on him and they tease him, right? And then sometimes they'll take his pants off, rendering him naked before everybody. You see what I mean? There's that shame and guilt. It's a big topic, isn't it? It's a lot to that. And they run the pants up the flagpole, or somewhere where the kid can't get it, and shame him. And what shames the kid? What traumatizes him? Being forced naked in front of the clothed kids, especially the girls. And then I suppose today it would be a similar thing, and people laughing at your physical attributes. I mean, this is what young people do. Oh, she's got a pair. Oh, he's got a tiny you-know-what, or he's got a huge, I mean, that's all they talk. It's like, well, if that's not an important thing, why is that always discussed? Why is that? Why is basically every sitcom, if there isn't a sex in it kind of thing going on, it's not there. It's because of the shame and guilt. It's because Adam and Eve covered their nakedness. That's the only reason the television wouldn't even exist without Adam and Eve. Either would movies. Either would the record industry, either would Rolling Stone magazine. None of it, right? You wouldn't have the sexual libertines, right, without having the guilt and shame in the first place. Which means they're not libertines at all, but they're reacting. It means these are so filled with guilt and shame that they go into a state of collective denial. Because mankind is ashamed of his nakedness. And that's by design. Once man overcomes the shame and guilt of nakedness, of lying, of all kinds of things, he would be called no conscience and no soul. But other cultures that don't have Adam and Eve in the Bible and all this, no, the Bible is just basically Adam and Eve is describing a certain condition of humanity. Say the Japanese, okay? We'll take the Japanese culture that, a lot of emphasis on, going to the bathhouse, going to the spa, if you will, and being naked while being scrubbed and whatnot by usually clothed women, but not getting into a state of arousal over it, but rather just, treating them as like servants and whatnot, and them getting together and discussing the politics of the day or whatever. They don't seem ashamed of their. I was at a Japanese spa, and I walked around naked myself, and I wasn't totally comfortable with it, but I wasn't, uncomfortable. It just seemed like, in that context, no, there weren't women there. This was an Americanized version, but it was like having these baths where you'd go into like an iron bath and then you'd wash off. Then there'd be a jacuzzi thing, and you just kind of go from water thing to water thing. And I was, acting like it didn't bother me, but then I decided, next time I'm here, I'm wearing shorts. Right, because I just feel more comfortable, and for whatever reason, and that I look into the Bible, I look at the shame of mankind, and the Japanese can feel ashamed. You've heard of Harry Carey. If they bring shame to themselves or their family, they feel so ashamed that they want to kill themselves. So that's deep level of guilt and shame. But it's just, it's a little bit different. But in our culture, there's a great shame and guilt, and not just here, but in Middle Eastern cultures and other cultures, there's a great shame and guilt over nakedness. And it's not the nakedness, it's the lust in man's heart that we're trying to hide from God by covering our bodies. It's the perverse thoughts. It's the, which can be basically, I want to kill that guy. I want to sleep with that person. I want to, you know what I mean? It's all of those kind of things are what is covered by Adam and Eve's covering their nakedness. They're covering all that goes along with it. The nakedness then becoming a metaphor for, extreme perversion, and ultimately for agreeing to be taken over. Everyone that's conformed to the system really completely, or conformed to the world completely, meaning that you go along and embrace everything that's going on, the governments, this, that, and everything. I would say there would be no conformity without you being a lover of government and a lover of kings and queens and everything. You'd have to love it all, right? The people I've seen that have had those attitudes, when you really query them, there's like, I've got a cousin that was very much like this. Once you query them, you realize that, I've tried to pry out of her for years anything real. And there's just, finally it was like, well, Zeph, you've got to understand, there's nobody home. There's nothing there. You just keep trying to drill a dry hole. That's not a good metaphor talking about my cousin, but you're trying to find something that doesn't exist and didn't exist since she was 16. When she, embraced the world and embraced her path, and her path then led to, graduate school and a doctorate and, being a honcho and all those things. But there was no depth. There was no talk, never a talk like this. This would stay. Yes, the reaction of people like that to me would be, look at that fool, and they just start laughing. No, because see, they're above being embarrassed. They're above and beyond, the way that I'm talking about our civilization and the shame and guilt over nakedness and things like that. They would consider that to be so beneath them and so pathetic that it would have to be brought up. They would look at a person like me as being so hung up and enchained that I was, it's just a sad case. I would be looked upon. They wouldn't attack me. They would pity me and say, "Thank God I'm not you." For, embracing the Bible, for bringing up these truths about nakedness and perversion and bloodletting, and tying those together and talking about the Jezebel nature of cognition between females and males, which is the fall of man, which is a genetic anomaly that was put there by whoever messed with our DNA, which I got to credit Johnny Kleck for kind of bringing that into my consciousness and making me really think about it, and Mike Hoggard and a couple others, and then I'm just really, I really see it very clearly. like we were thrown down here, through a genetic manipulation so they could lord it over us. So we could be, in other words, they wanted us to be their servants. They wanted to be our gods, and we would be their children. That's what they really wanted. They wanted to be what? Like the Most High. Exactly. So now, for you and for me, this should be hell, right? This is the opposite of what we had before. This would be hell. It may be a pretty picture of it, but it still has the same basic dynamic of hell. Hell is when you just give up and let her take you, when you let her castrate you, when you let her take over your mind, when you no longer fight but you say, yes, I will do, and when you become an extension of her will. See John Boehner. That's perfect. How he grovels before Michelle Obama. It's pathetic now, but I mean that's an external embodiment of just exactly what I'm talking about. He's given in to the power. Obama doesn't represent. It's not Obama. He represents a principality and a power, and all the Republicans have now bowed down to him. And I told you they're even doing it more now today than I made Boehner an example. Now you're seeing all of them do it. That's a great example of the naked children, the boys being, no, the girls no, but the boys being forced to take their clothes off on the island while the girls remain clothed, and the boys are subjected to the girls as being in charge. Look, that's just a silly, I was, 5 when I had this nightmare. Okay, so that's a child's nightmare. But you could develop it further if you like, but the whole bottom line, it kind of goes back to those fig leaves or the whatever of Adam and Eve, right? It goes back to that. What's going on with someone when you need to cover your nakedness, when nakedness was no big deal? Why do you now need to cover that nakedness? What does that mean soul-wise or reality-wise? Because the kingdom is within, right? Or hell is within, whatever. But I mean, that reality is within us. So what is that signifying? It's not original sin, it's original shame. It's that the human being is basically ashamed of himself. You don't need the church to instill anything to make you feel guilt and shame. Our basic nature is to be ashamed. And a lot of people thought that was Western culture, that if we brought up kids, to be not ashamed of their sex and not ashamed of their lust and not ashamed of their thoughts, to be out with it all, to be visible with it all, that we could be shaped into wonderful human beings, that we could evolve beyond our kind of primitive nature. And, the primitive nature of man would be, okay, shame and guilt over the lust would mean pervert. A libertine would be a non-pervert. But those people that did the libertine thing, they found that there was no nirvana there. They didn't solve the original problem. They can only exist in the denial of God, which is the assertion of God. In other words, by their life and by their fall, I know God exists. They show me God every day. By their incredible hostility toward X, then I know X exists, or there wouldn't be any hostility toward X unless X was real. When I see hostility of the world toward Jesus, i.e., they're more openly hating Jesus now, more and more on like Twitter and stuff. You see them. So by that hatred of Jesus, I know Jesus not only was on the earth and existed, but it exists as God eternally. And it even shows me that Jesus is the creator of the worlds of heaven and earth, because he's the Word, and the Word is God, and the Word is with God, and the Word is made flesh in Jesus, but it's still God. So I know from them hating X that X exists. Them denying X means X exists. If X didn't exist, if there was no God, there could be no denial of which. Philosophy 101, Logic 101. Unless there is a thing, it can't be denied. So in denial of a thing, there is a thing. The more you resist a thing, the more it exists. The more it persists. The more you deny God, the more he exists. If there was no God, there would be nothing to deny, nothing to hate. A person that said, I'm in Christ, would mean nothing to them. There would be no persecution. I mean, they might think you're crazy, but they would feel no threat. Further to this, I know God exists as all-powerful because they feel a threat enough to persecute people that believe in God, because they're worried about what? Prayer, that person has power, and they're worried that it will threaten their power. Jezebel in them knows that God exists and feels threatened by God's power to put her out. So the thing she wants to do is prevent humanity from being educated about God, because then she is secure, even to the point of wanting to eradicate God's people from the earth, feeling like then she would have victory. But then the wiser ones realize that without the wheat, the tares, there'd be no reason for God to have created this place in the first place. Therefore, they better tolerate some of God's people, but they'll keep them at a very low level. You know, you may be royalty with Christ. You may be a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. You may be all these things, but here, you're riding in on a donkey, pal. You're going to be crucified like a common criminal. You may be royalty there, but this is the opposite mirror world. This is a opposite mirror of heaven, of the kingdom of God. It's opposite in every way. And even when you think there's some virtue here, it'll betray you too. So that you'll eventually get a view that it's 100% wicked. Or like my grandfather used to say, people are no damn good. All people. That was as true a statement then as it is right now. People are no damn good. That's why we need Jesus Christ. It's the only way we can, we would have to have a desire to be good. But in order to fulfill that desire, we'd have to admit we're no good. But Jesus is all good, and we need him to make us good because we don't want to stay stuck here. We realize there's to make this world work for you. And I've got friends, friends that are so, they're all connected in with all kinds of businesses and different things and people, and they love the Lord, but and that love of God keeps them from doing evil things out there that will eventually bite you from taking risks and doing things and taking shortcuts. What keeps them virtuous? No, God's not against business. Excuse me. The ones that do really well a lot of times are the ones that are God-fearing, because they realize the law of cause and effect. If you go out there and screw your clients, it comes back on you, Bernie Madoff. Perfect example. Reap what you sow is always in effect. It's kind of our check and balance system for the earth. When that's abrogated, as it seems to be now, I call that the judgment of God. It's not like there's this guy, God, walking around who's going to, throw lightning bolts at stuff. It's like stuff just turns. It just turns, right? It becomes abnormally, and it's going to go to equilibrium. So like I say, equilibrium now means we'd have to have a global war. I'm not really interested in what their motivations are. Yes, there could be grace as well. There could be a turn of events that causes peace to come instead of war. But, the feeling in the air is that in order to pay the debt, there would have to be a bloodletting sacrifice to even the books. I told you, no one's life is worth the amount of debt, say, in the United States. The people that are really Luciferian would want to run the debt up to the ultimate hilt where no one could ever get out of it, and then offer a solution of slavery in exchange for paying the debt off, for acquitting you. Take Jesus. The blood of Jesus is free. You can drink from the living water freely. You covered in his blood. His blood was shed for you to be free. And at that point, I have nothing to do with the debt. technically I'm a citizen of the kingdom of God. You know, I mean, I may be listed as a citizen here, and there may be debt in my name here, as there is with every American. But technically, you cannot enslave, or I'll put it this way, you cannot take my soul to pay the debt, because with me, Jesus' blood paid for me. I was paid for, you know, and acquitted. So I'm no longer, you know, able for Satan to take advantage in that way, where he can take, you know, my soul and say, look, I'll tell you what, we'll erase the debt if you give me your soul. Well, how do I give you my soul? Just bow down to Jeze. Let her into your heart. Then you can start to make it better. But I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ. I stand in Christ. I'm saved by the blood of Jesus. He paid for me. Oh, another one. Well, you're right. I can't force you. You're right. Technically, you're right. You don't owe me your soul. But everybody else here does. In order to not lose your soul, meaning you go beyond the taboos of guilt and shame, and you become at one with the world, which would mean that you are now part of the hive mind. You that was there is no longer there. So your soul, that's you, is no longer there. I mean, that's technically, that's what's referred to as the second death in the Bible. Once that person that's you is not there, you're already twice dead, because you're no longer inhabiting the vessel of your body. This is a very common thing. I mean, I think Invasion of the Body Snatchers was kind of warning that when people become those, they're not human anymore. They look like human, but they're just there to deceive the rest of the actual humans into giving up the ghost. So it would be a carcass walking around, but it's walking around with a purpose, that is to get the souls of others. And the whole thing is like a big tick sucking blood until it gets all the souls, and you know, game over. It's not about having a civilization here. It's not about a new world order. The powers and principalities of Satan and the gods that they serve, if they ask me, then I would tell them those gods that they serve do not want them to have a new world order and do not want them to advance as a civilization. They want it wiped out because they don't want to be threatened. So they will make sure that humanity fails, because they do not want the emancipation of humanity to the God. They made humanity, or tinkered with humanity, or caused it to fall, or whatever, in order to have children, have servants to serve them. They did not make humanity in their mind. They blaspheme. God made humanity. Yes, he made man in his image, and then what happened? Something happened. Man fell. Yeah, but then there was Noah. Noah was perfect in his generations, meaning he was genetically not tampered with. I mean, he was, you know, so you can't say that it's all, you know, was Noah drunk? Was Noah a sinner? Then he was tampered with. Period. End of story. So going beyond that taboo, while it may seem like the thing Hollywood wants to promote, will eventually lead to destruction, because there would be no reason for the real life force. Is not your sex. It's not your egg or your sperm. It's not your will. It's not your selfhood. What the real power of all creation, of all manifestation is God. If you go over, then God within you has no longer a motivation or any reason to sustain you. If you're just a robot, then, you know, twice dead, then there's no, it's like, would you develop feelings of family connection with a different species? Like, would you breed with another species, or would you feel an affinity toward a metal plate, like it's your friend? Would you regard that metal plate in the midst of your life, or a bowl of sand, or a jar of salt? I mean, would you use it, but you're not going to regard it as a human being. You're not going to regard it like, oh, I really care about. I've got feelings for the salt shaker. I don't want to see the salt shaker get hurt. No, you wouldn't have. It's just a salt shaker. You'd allow it to exist, but to you it would now be a salt shaker rather than someone you really cared about. The same thing with God. By becoming something else, such as Nimrod did, you are no longer cared for by the Lord God, because it's not personal. It's that there's nothing there. It's something else other than it was. It's not there anymore. So therefore, it would not come under the protection of God. It would be under, the person who owns the salt shaker, perhaps, would take care of it. It would not be the same as God looking after his children and guiding his children, because he cares and loves his children. When that person is no longer that and they're a child of another, well, the Lord may be concerned, but he's not going to, he'll let live, but he's not going to, say, discipline or intervene, because that's up to the father of that child to do. We can look at it a number of ways like that. That's how the Bible looks at it. But to me, it's more like an object. If a person becomes an object, it's not like the Lord saying, I'm punishing you for becoming an object. It's more like it's a bypass. It's impersonal, is what I mean. It's just part of nature. In other words, that father is not going to care over something that's not his son or daughter. I mean, you let the salt shaker exist, if we go back to that, but you might even use it, but you're not going to condemn it or yell at it, or you know what I mean? You're not going to have any thought personally about it whatsoever. All right, at the risk of just, oh, yes. Yeah, the interview yesterday was with Kel was quite nice, and really talked a lot about the process of the music, and she was able to express about what she'd like to see with the music and how it came about. And we talked about the technique and some of the style of the songs, how they're so unique but yet so accessible at the same time. And there's sort of no compromise with it. And quite a few people have bought CDs. It's not like that would be on the radio, but these songs beg to be, on the radio, and I believe that if given the chance, they could help to, influence people to do their own, to have more creative music about the Lord, rather than formulaic stuff that, that just lacks creativity. At the same time, these songs, several of them, are very commercial in the sense they're very accessible. That's what I've been told by people that are, A&R people. Very accessible, very commercial, and very, very radio ready. So, we would love to share it via the radio, and if any of you, can help that happen, as far as radio play, do so. I give you permission, do so. You don't have to contact me for permission. Just, forward the material to somebody that can put it on the radio, and then we'll take it from there. But yeah, we'd like to share it with more people, because I believe, just like I do this podcast, I believe that the people are in great need right now of spiritual comfort, and I believe they're in need of having of musical comfort. I mean, music is life. It's how the worlds were formed. The whole world that you see, and all the planets and stars, all were sung into existence. So I think, and I believe there's a lot of room for a lot more projects that have that ability to take us somewhere to, if you will, deliver us from. I hate talking about what I talked about today. I hate, and I wouldn't do it if I heard it somewhere else. If I heard anyone else speaking the truth in that way about getting down to the nub of our existence and our sex and our desire and our proving our fallen condition and whatnot, and get down to the real nub of who runs the world and what it's really all about. I mean, as much as I like to listen to people like Alex Jones and stuff, ultimately I know that he's barking up the wrong tree. And those people that are, the Occupy Wall Street people, they're barking up the wrong tree. And, people that feel like they're, the blaming somebody else is barking up the wrong tree. The real problem with humanity is the way I laid it out today. And I laid it out in a modern context, but, everything that I said earlier can be found in the confines of the Bible. It discusses Jezebel. It discusses the Jezebel spirit. It discusses the unclean spirit, which is the spirit of the world is an unclean spirit. And it must be cast out, but only God can do it. Why we're here, good question. It's like something was wrong, we did something wrong. Yes, you bet we did in some way. Or we were connected to it, or we certainly have the genetic material of it. And God makes a way for us to come home, but we have to do it His way. We're not going to come home by serving Jezebel. We're not going to come home by conforming to the world. We're not going to come home by, allowing ourselves to be invaded by the hive mind, because just like an invasion of the body snatchers, once they get in you in that way, they take you. They want your soul, but it's for more than just this life. They want to extract that which is in you, and then they trade these souls. It's weird. They have a way to extract it from you, and then they can keep it in these a box. It's weird. They can keep these souls in abeyance, and they can trade them like trading commodities. How they do it, I don't know. But what it is it's all the desires, individuality, and the hopes and dreams of humanity, they have in a little jar, and they can trade that. It's like, say, that's 10 million souls right there. And all of them want the same thing. They all want to be free. They all want to be loved and love. They all want a better world for their children. And I say, it's high time these souls are liberated. I mean, if it were up to me, I'd go find out where all these souls are kept, and I would liberate them, and I would teach them not to be like the jerks they were, so they wound up in that position, but to do the right thing. The Bible's got stories about the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man wanted to come back here to do it right. And I am fully aware that people that passed on who did everything the world's way and lost it, I'm sure they would love to come back here and teach their children and grandchildren not to do what they'd done. But if they could come back, they'd find their children and grandchildren worshiping the ground they walked on, wanting to do it the same way that Dad did, and doing it that way. The sins of the fathers. The only redeeming thing we can do is nothing of our own, but is to ask the Lord to save us, and to have Him be our life, our provision, and have Him, and He will disconnect you from the world system, and then they'll get mad. I mean, doesn't that make sense? Do you really want to be a friend of the world that, is a sinking ship? They hate you anyway. They hate themselves. Or would you rather just take the risk of their scorn and be an example for them? Better to be an example. They see that you live and you do well, and hopefully that will inspire them. I think, though, with the shame and guilt, I'll just put it this way. Of course, I give people a pass. I don't harp on their sins here. I don't care what they are, or their sex, or their what they consider perversions. We don't do that ministry here. I don't counsel people on how to go from being gay to not gay. I don't counsel people on how to go from looking at porn to not looking at it. I don't counsel people about their masturbation habits or lustful mental habits. I don't counsel anyone on any of that stuff. That's just because that is because all of that is a way to create divisions among people and judgments between people. And I don't want to go there because, you see, ascension in the Spirit and a growth in the Spirit kind of eradicates all those issues anyway. So let's kill all the birds with one stone. That is, go toward God, go toward the light, and these other things fall away. These are, of course, a man who is, rejected God or running from God or whatever, who's justified himself and his desires and his lusts, who, may be involved in slanderous sin, lying, adulterous sin, all kinds of sin. I would expect that man, that woman, to be in all the sins, even criminally so. But see, I don't want to talk to the guy about his crimes. In other words, if you lie or you murder, it's the same. It's sin. It's just, they're equal. In the ultimate spiritual terms. So I don't want to go there. What I want to talk about is, how do we walk with the Lord now? How do we get closer to the Lord? And the answer is, it's the same thing. We must conform to the Lord. And we can't do it. He has to conform us, meaning we must yield to him, daily, hourly. We must be willing to keep in prayer and asking him for his guidance and then doing it. And it leads to a path, like Psalm 23 says, he sets a table for us in the midst of our enemies. In other words, you have your path in your life in the midst of people that may, hate you because you're not serving the devil or whatever, or serving Jezebel or serving whatever. I would say to that, when we harp on the sin, whatever it is, it's like kind of wanting to sweep the sand out of the sandbox. We've been doing it one grain of sand at a time. You would never really get to the end of sweeping the sand out of the sand. In other words, you never solve your problem, which is that you want the sand out of the sandbox. Same thing with talking about individual sin. We're all have that same nature. It's what we do with it. In other words, if your intention, if you're okay with it, then, your conscience is seared. You no longer feel any guilt or shame. Well, then there's a very big part of you that's not there. Then you would not go to the Lord. You just won't. The only reason you go to the Lord if you're so disgusted with yourself. You have to be. I'm not disgusted with other people. I'm disgusted with myself. Every day I'm given an opportunity to trust the Lord, and 9 times out of 10, I'll have a doubt, or I'll try to take it in my own hands, or I'll worry about someone else's intentions. No, I want to go with good faith, and let me explain what the Lord is having me do, so that maybe you get an example, and this is probably the Rhema that has taken 5 hours to get to. To solve this problem of being, of your, I hate to keep using balls and testicles and stuff, but having those owned by Jezebel, in order to get out of that situation, you need to be set free by you can only be set free by the legal contract, if you will, of the blood of Jesus Christ, that acceptance, that faith. And once you have that, then that contract is severed with Jezebel, and you can have your guns back. When you check out of the jail, the sheriff has to, back in the Old West, you check out of the jail after, right? The sheriff gives you back your belongings, including your guns, your testicles, whatever. You get them back.
And then you go out, get on your horse and ride off somewhere, wherever you want. So likewise, when you follow the Lord, when you give your life over to the Lord, He pays the rent, the bail, and He goes and advocates with the judge, and you're basically acquitted, and you get to walk out of there. You owe her nothing anymore. You're no longer like them who are with her, so they're going to collectively, jump on you because you're not them anymore. The only choice you have at that point is, because you've got the Lord, then you have no more need to worry. So the first task is, am I worrying? Okay. The answer is yes. Then more of the Lord, more of the Word, more of the dedication to the Lord and His purpose is needed. Because if you doubt, that's something you have to work out with Lord. I'm sorry, Lord, I sinned because I doubted. Or I worried about this person and that person rather than bringing that to you. So I tell people, Lord, my worries. He goes, I don't want you to worry. This is me now. I forbid you to worry. I forbid you to be cynical, in other words. I forbid you to think that everyone's trying to screw you. I want you to, because you have me, I want you to live in good faith with humanity, I want you to be, if the other guy says he will or will not do something and you have no reason to doubt that, I want you to not think another thought of it. I do not want you to worry whether someone's going to screw you or mess with your food or, steal your money or do this or that or whatever it is. I want you to be like a child walking out in good faith again, like you used to. When we're children, we do that automatically, huh? And that's what I would call freedom, the freedom to be able to, but they'll say, well, what about non-believers? Oh, well, the only response I have to all the human beings on the earth and everything on the earth and all the animals is, I love them. If for some reason they can't be here or they're taken or they're gone with the devil or something like that, and they, like my mother used to say, they're gone to the devil, she would say. And when she said that to me, she indicated, and they don't want to come back. They don't want what you have to offer. Speaking to me, they don't want to listen to your podcast. They don't want God, really. They're gone to the devil, and that's their, and that's what they're going to do. That's all they're going to do. And I'm not going to sit there hating them. I'm not going to regard them like, oh, gee, we could have been, sometimes you get in a conversation with someone, you kind of connect with their spirit. And if you find out their affiliation is there, you're going to try to, convince them otherwise. But in general, we don't wind up with people. They wind up with their people. You wind up with your people. But okay, given that reality, I don't want to spend my time worrying about, the salt shaker. Why should I worry about the salt shaker? My worry is about my Lord, and if He's all right with me, and if we have that going on, and then worrying, about not worrying, but being concerned for, our species. In other words, I don't see them when I go out there. I just see mainly us, and there's plenty of us. I mean, there's not that many people that are so evil that they would actually get to the point of being a psychopathic murderer. And, those are not people that do you want to hang around those? I don't think so. But I don't want to regard, it's like, I can't hate them. I'm not going to hate a psychopathic murderer. Like, I'm not going to be involved. But the main thing has got to be between me and the Lord. Is, where do I go, Lord? What do I say? What do I do? And, that could only come if I have realized that I'm going to die. I have so much time on the earth. There's really nothing I want to do for me personally in a vanity way because I can't keep it. So, I'm just going to want to say and do those things that, that would be pleasing to God and that would bring me into connection with Him. That would, and I don't want to just hate. I mean, I bristle when I see a guy like Jay Carney on the air talking. Having a little press, telling everybody that the president is superior in every way to everyone, and how dare you question him or whatever he does with the press. I don't want to hate that man at all. And I don't. And I don't want to worry about what it means them flying drones around. I want to operate in good faith. Meaning, now listen, God is in control. Kids say that, but if you really believe God's in control, then your worries are gone. That's what I want now. I want to treat people with good regard. No, with an open hand. And people, if I want to trust the Lord that if it's somebody that wants to game, or do something, that the Lord will steer me. So I don't worry. So if I feel if I'm there in their presence, they're in my presence, then I'm going to have the good faith that it's a good connection because the Lord made it happen, rather than, gee, I don't know. And rather than saying, is this a time for me to use discernment? Is he or is he not evil? Is this becoming my friend, something that that's going to be used for a game? I've seen how the Lord just literally takes those kind of people. No, there are people out there that they're predators. They're looking for, a game. That's what they want to do. They want to take an innocent person, somebody that's unwitting, and they want to con them, steal their energy, to, do something. No, I don't want to think that way. Or when I look, I pray over my food, and that's the end of it. I'm not going to sit there and worry, well, I wonder if there's food poisoning. I wonder if there's, one of these Satanists around spiking it with. I'm not going to. No, I don't want to worry about it. The Bible says not to worry about any of those kind of things. Won't God take care of me? Won't the Lord steer me? You know what? I'm not going to serve Jezebel, and I'm not going to serve, Popeye. Yet I'm going to serve humanity. But I'm not going to let Jezebel take that which is me out of me and replace it with something else. So, which is what she demands. So I'm not going to give her that demand, that I basically become a hollowed out servant, robot servant. But at the same time, the people caught up in that, I'm here to serve them. Look, you people caught up with that, if you can hear this message at all, what it means is that there's hope for you, or you wouldn't be able to hear this. It means that I told you, there's a lot of people that Jezebel has taken taken over, but they are prodigals. They don't belong there. They know that, this is most people actually. For those of you who are wondering if, God's going to kill 90% of the people and there's only 10% of his, a small number. No, I think that the Lord wouldn't make all these people upon the earth just to throw them away. I have to operate with good faith. Now you're contradicting yourself, brothers. No, I didn't say everybody is a robot. Every once in a while you'll see some. I'm not saying I don't see everybody every day being a robot. I see people that are still concerned for their kids. If they do something wrong, they feel guilty. There's still the majority of people are like that. Well, don't we all have to reach them with the gospel? The gospel will reach every single person that God intends it to reach. Didn't we let God down? No, God cannot be let down because it's a rigged game, you see. He already knows the end from the beginning. So God's not going to be disappointed with anything because it's not a fluid situation. It's not a random situation. Every moment of every day is already pre-written, which is a fact that gives me a great deal of comfort because I understand that not any of his will be lost. You have a sea of humanity out there. You have billions of people, of which most love their children, care for their children, and they do the right thing, and they don't cheat, and they're not criminals, who have had to bow to their king, bow to Jezebel, bow to this, bow to that, because they didn't know any better, because they didn't have King Jesus. They didn't have the sovereign ultimate to bow down to. They had to be able to be a subject in order to have a career path or whatever. That's perfectly understandable. And the Lord understands that so well that he gave his only begotten Son, that we would be set free from bondage. Being in the world, not of it, means, you could still have your career path, whatever it is, still serve people, because most careers serve people. And know that the Lord is your God, and know that your allegiance belongs with him. And the only way that gets into troublesome is when he tells you to do something. To me, he'll say, son, no worries. Do not worry about what this one or that one or how they're going to screw you or any of those things. Stop it. You deal with good faith with everyone you meet. By all means, flaunt it, meaning that whatever my truth is, my peace, he wants me to flaunt it. I think the reason he wants me to flaunt it is because because people are ready, in a sense, to hear something. I think people really want God in their lives. I really do, and I really think people don't want they're being brainwashed to think that they don't want the God of the Bible, and they don't want Allah and all this Islam stuff. They don't want stuff where there's all these rituals, and they don't want to go to church necessarily because that's corrupt. They don't want to, they want a spiritual epiphany. They want a connection with God. They want to know there's more to life than they want to find meaning in their own lives. And why was I here? Why did I do all this? Why have I struggled so much? They want peace about that. They want to be able to forgive and be forgiven. They want to, not worry and be more like children, like we were when we were children, when we didn't worry about things. The Lord wants to restore that in us. And he'll have crazy people like me talking in order to jar you loose, trying to bust you loose. We've all had how many years? I've had 58 years of programming, friends, almost 59 now, of programming. And that programming has been designed to make me feel fear. It's like the programming I've had in my life from school on has been like a carrot and stick. If I don't, if I go for the carrot, I'll be fine. And if I don't go for the carrot, I get the stick. So I've had a very narrow, pathway. It's either the carrot or the stick. And the Lord has liberated me from that. So it's not, I suppose it's a carrot and stick with him, but I mean, it's no longer a carrot and stick provided by the world, but now it's the Lord that I must answer to. And in so doing, he wants to change me so that I can be at peace, so that all I see is beauty, so that I don't spend my time condemning all the things that are wrong with the human world, and rather being able to live and have joy within it. No, not putting on rose-colored glasses and just not seeing what's there, but rather being, it's like living in another dimension, And then when we're here from another dimension, we are here like aliens. We're like ambassadors to try to wake people up. Now, to wake people up, I don't need to do these podcasts. These podcasts are really, they will wake you up, but, into deeper and deeper levels of understanding. But the scary stuff here, like the stuff we talked about earlier, I think is just to make you appreciate that you cannot get out of, and I can't get out of this bind we're in genetically, or this bind we're in as humanity, without supernatural help. That, I would never tell someone to fight the world. I mean, you got Alex Jones to fight. I've brought him up 3 times now, but I mean, here's a guy who's kind of fighting the world and trying to stop the evil from encroaching, and you know, it's a losing battle because his perception of the world is distrust, and that it's evil, and people are either asleep or they are, you know, actively serving evil. And his view is that, you know, he's afraid that someone's going to hurt him. And he's afraid of persecution and things like that. And so he's not able to be at peace. And so long as you have an us and them consciousness, you know what I mean? As long as you have this thing of you're going to go out and by your own hand, you're going to stop this corruption. You're going to get your bullhorn out and yell at humanity, stop it, stop it. No, I applaud some of the things he does, like going and yelling at his bullhorn at Piers Morgan for trying to steal the guns and stuff. I mean, I'm not saying none of you know, he's, for all I know, he's doing God's will for him, which is being a blowhard like that. It's just when I see people unhappy, in other words, when I spent a lot of time, you know, talking about the world system and, you know, Babylon, Satan's penis, everyone's corrupt in Washington. If I spent all my time doing all that, Satan's penis meaning the Washington Monument, you know, the obelisks that they're everywhere. It's like nod, wink, yeah, that's our religion, and you know that's based, you know. So the United States was crap from the get-go, and everything's crap, but it's crap everywhere you look. It's always crap. So I'm going to sit here and wait to be raptured. I don't want to go there. And I don't want my brothers and sisters who are all prodigals, I don't want them to suffer thinking that due to fear they have to keep on this carrot and stick consciousness where they just keep, you know, living lives of quiet desperation while being in fear that they might get punished if they don't, you know, toe the line. I want us to be free of that, because towing the line means you're also contributing to the evil. I'm not going to yell at them for that. You know, I used to yell at people because I thought that if I could just get everyone to not sell out, then we could have a good world. Now I realize that, you know, we've all sold out. And I look at all the times I've sold out. I just, you know, whether it's selling out on a principle that you have or giving Jezebel your gonads there. I'll never get over that one. That was funny today. That image of, yeah. Oh God, that was funny. I just have to laugh. But you know, but it makes a point. I can't. Okay, it's like going into that market where they're all walking around with their, you know, openly. I'm not going to go tell them to tuck it in. I started at that. I thought if we could just get everybody to, you know, and it's like trying to put your finger in a dike that's breaking, you know, when the levee's breaking, putting your finger in the levee. It's not going to work. You're just going to get flooded and drowned. So there had to be another way. But what's my reason really? Do I care if they... I care that children are being hurt by parents who are trying to groom them to fit in the world and to do it the world's way. Yes, that concerns me, because you know, the sins of the fathers are visited upon the sons. You know, in other words, the scourge of humanity goes on to the next generation. No, I don't want to see that. But you know something, folks? There's nothing I can do about it. And I don't blame them. I know, look, anyone who's been in the music industry or entertainment or anything, you know, everyone there is basically sold out to the devil in one way or another, most everyone. And they're not happy. It's not like they're jumping for joy. Oh, yippee, my God's taking care of me. So theoretically, they want a way out of it, but the problem is Christianity is uncool. Jesus is bad. The Bible is this old uptight book that's telling me, condemning me for wanting to stone somebody for just looking at the whatever. It's archaic. I don't want any part of that. It's just all these hung up values. That's why our society is so messed up, is because all these perverts are like priests in the church, and they're all around that. More perverts in Christianity than anywhere else in the world. They may be right. If Jesus doesn't heal you from the inside out, then you're just covering up the pervert. It's better to have a guy just out and out, out with it, out of the closet. So I found that's not the way to go. Barking at people over sin, as most preachers have done, is a losing battle. Hating people who are contributing to the evil is a losing battle, since I too am contributing to the evil, even if I don't want to look at how I'm doing it. There's obviously things I do that contribute to the same evil in the society that I complain about, making me, and everyone else, by the way, who preaches, a hypocrite. Why would they want to follow? I don't want them to follow me. They'd be following a hypocrite if they follow me. So you have so many followers, though. Well, they shouldn't follow me. I am a sinner and obviously an obvious hypocrite. And I have reason. I've brilliant things that happen in these discussions, but they happen as an accident. They're not something I can rely on, or they're not something I would be able to take to the bank. That's why I speak to you at random. I try to dress down this show and to deformalize it, because I realize I don't want you to think I'm your leader. I also cannot set an example for you to follow, because what I do in my life is not the plan God has for you to do in your life. You can't follow me, and I can't follow you. All these kind of ideas of following and having leaders, people out there that are leaders, they're just there to be torn down eventually. Preachers that bark about sin all day long are really hating the sinner and loving the sin in a sense. I mean, they're doing the opposite. Barking about the sin is like, trying to sweep out the grains of sand out of the sandbox one at a time. You'll never get to the end of it. We are sinners. We lust. We lie. We covet. We envy. Many of us are mad at God for not making our lives easier, since he's so powerful, just as Jesus was questioning why he was on the cross. I want to get over all this. I want to get to the real nub of it all. And yes, all of us, one way or another, have been subject to Jezebel. Me, I'm subject to Jezebel just because if I resist Jezebel, then she clobbers me. I.e. that this girl that was... I never finished that story about this, did I? This girl that was sowing discord. I sort of talked about it. Jezebel that was sowing discord. So she, funny story about the music. My friend told me this, because I'm collaborating with him, and then he confessed to me this story. He said, well, she used to tell you that your music was awesome and this and that. And then she'd go to like a deliverance minister and ask to get deliverance because she was demon possessed because your music has so many demons in it. In other words, and so she'd tell me it was awesome, and then she'd go get deliverance for it from somewhere else. And so they were all agreeing that yes, that guy is evil because that music of Zeph, it's evil, and if you listen, you'll get possessed. So it's awesome, Zeph. Oh, thanks. Hey, sister. And then over here with people that I would otherwise be friends with. You see how evil, and then convincing them, and then when all that was said and done, when she busted up me and some other people, she, with one person that I know, took great glee in taking credit for busting up fellowship, And her goal really in life is to, anytime there are any kind of, people who preach or people have radio shows, if she can break up all those relationships and destroy them, then she feels really great about herself, like she did a really good job. Okay, well, so who's she working for? To bring discord to believers and to cause enmity between them and to cause pain and suffering and slander is basically the Jezebel spirit. And even in that, I just laugh at it now. I don't, it doesn't bother me. In fact, with friends with people that we at one time were at each other's throats, we just laugh about it at this point. We learn something, And what I've learned is, obviously, beware of flatteries. Had I read my Bible more thoroughly, I would have seen that over and over and over again, pretty much all the way through. But that was a lesson. No, I don't really accept compliments. I don't want them, and flatteries about anything, because obviously through flatteries, kingdoms are divided and conquered. You flatter one guy, butter one guy up over here, then go slander him over there, and you can do lots and lots of damage, because the Jezebel spirit feels that we men, who are doing these things, we're easy prey. And we would be easy, except for the Lord can guide us. That being said, I don't want to go out there with a closed fist. When I'm dealing with people that we're praying, in the name of Jesus, we're talking about the Lord and all that, I don't want to just think, every other person is a Jezebel or this or that. I've got to go open-handed. I want to go in good faith. I want to go with a positive attitude, and I want to go with giving good regard to my fellow, because, can they reform? Well, the Jezebel spirit's a psychopathic spirit, but I suppose if they belong to the Lord, they can be healed, of course. The problem is in feeling like you don't need healing, and it's always the other guy's fault. Notice how in the Obama administration, and more so in this administration than others, but they've all done it to a certain extent, everything is like someone else's fault because Obama's perfect. Okay, that's like the Jezebel spirit. It's always blaming other people and all that. And I don't want to get into that myself, And when I've been in a victim mentality, in a sense, I'm in the Jezebel spirit myself, because I'm blaming other people for my troubles and traumas and things. And I look at my own childhood now, and now I realize, fall of humanity. All children, my mother was right. All children are abused. Just being here on the earth planet, and you're a child, you're abused. So we should go after those abusers. Oh, well, then maybe I should just shoot myself in the head, because I know my daughter has issues with me, being, went through a divorce. She had a sense of abandonment from me, and then she distrusted me, and we had fights, and it was terrible. I'm sure that I contributed to her traumas. Maybe I didn't, I wasn't around enough but that by not being around, I traumatized her. So you see, I've had my hands bloody, and I don't think there's any one of us is free of anything. So I can't condemn people that, are weak. Jezebel can seduce just about any man. I don't condemn them from being seduced. That's not the issue for me. It's like I said, when it gets to the point where your conscience is seared, where you can go ahead and evil is no longer evil, and you can do all these evil things with no conscience, that's a person that's not there anymore. Right? When people do have a conscience, and they are, then to me they're intact. It's like the conscience is almost an indicator that the soul is still there. The soul can still be redeemed. And today, in these days, anyone that's got a sense of guilt and shame and a sense of fair play and all that, they may serve the devil and all this, but if they still have that, then they really aren't truly being obedient to the devil. And the question you have to ask is why? When they have everything to gain by being a little more evil, they could really go up the ladder. Why? What's stopping them right there? The answer is probably prodigals. Most people in today's society who are not Christian and whatnot, You say, well, were they redeemed or did God throw them away? No, God didn't throw them away. God deals with them as he will. Well, can you say they went to heaven? No, I can't say who went to heaven or who went to hell. No, I can't. I could speculate, but I really can't. The only thing I could deal with is the here and now. And the only way that I can proceed forth in the world is to not be, paranoid and all that. I've got to, well, what about discernment? Don't you need to use discernment? I think the Lord will give me discernment. If there's someone I shouldn't be around or someone I shouldn't talk to, I think the Lord will give me that discernment. I don't think he's going to let me just go down the tubes. What about this, letting people like that Jezzy and who was, telling you this one thing and telling other people something else and sowing discord amongst all the so-called brethren? I'm like, well, no, we can take it. Obviously, how else are you going to test the brethren? How else are you going to do it? Right? See, folks, it's not about Jezebel. It's not her world. She's not the focus of creation. For most of us, she's a test. How about Potiphar in Egypt, the Pharaoh's wife? Wives, whatever. Seducing Joseph and then being rebuffed, and then, of course, he's thrown in prison. I mean, he rejected Jezebel, and he paid for it. I think the way that I would like to conduct myself in a Jezebel situation is without losing my joy. I love it when people they encounter someone like that and go, hey, look, I know who you are. Come on, let's get off it. And it's impersonal. It's like, I know what you're going to do. You know what I'm going to do, so I'm just moving on. You got no power here, Jezzy. Moving on. That doesn't mean I distrust humans. It just means that, okay, there's a use of discernment. How else am I going to know someone's a witch or not unless the Lord tells me? He's going to have to whisper in my ear and tell me, this is, okay. So therefore, it never becomes personal. Therefore, I don't hate. That's what you got to watch out for. When you start hating, you become a perfect subject. You become primed for the satanic takeover. What about all fears and insecurity about, music and these words here and being a human on earth and feeling like there's trouble and feeling like you're hated and feeling like you're sort of loved and feeling like you're loved, doubting that people, wondering if they've fallen out of love or don't love you anymore or do love you or, what your status is and the Lord absolutely forbids all of that. Absolutely forbids all that kind of thinking. Like right now we've got stats out there where we're popular here in Reverb Nation or whatever. That means it's meaningless. That's what I tell people. I say, yeah, well, that's fine. It's meaningless. Oh, congratulations. For what? It's meaningless. It doesn't mean, it has nothing to do with me. If people, you could be number one today and gone tomorrow. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. The thing you want to do is it's how do you feel? I feel fine. Okay. How do you feel if you worry about what your status is? Well, then I don't feel fine. Well, then if you don't feel fine, then you're failing in the Lord. Because the Lord doesn't want us to feel bad every single day. Whether you're up, whether you're down, whether you're here, whether they're all defined by other people. It does not matter. If it does, then obviously the Lord's not doing his work in you. The liberation that I feel is when I don't care and when I don't hate those people that did, like that little girl that ran around doing this, these demon-possessed things. It's nothing. It used to be something, but it's nothing. Well, you start off talking about the Facebook people putting these Facebook comments that if you say anything about what the left is doing, they always come back and say the right is just as evil, corrupt. Everyone's corrupt and waiting for the rapture. Fine, it doesn't hurt me personally. I'm not going to let it rob my joy. I'm just putting out a fair warning that, if someone tries to distract from one of my posts and bring up another topic, I'm going to just delete it. It doesn't mean I don't like them. Huh, Molly? You going to say something? Huh? Something going on out there? Molly. Something's going on out there. So, in a lot of ways, it's like threading a needle. You got evil on this side, you got good on that side. And we're trying to kind of, go with the good and not have the evil hurt us. But then I also realize that I'm evil too, and potentially as evil as anyone. There they go. So how can I do that? How can I do that? And gosh, you better let her out because I can't concentrate with that going on. How can I thread that needle? How can I live and live in joy and peace with a good regard toward my fellow humans? It is no fun to live in fear of what other people will or won't do. The Lord forbids it. And that's, okay, so that's the area where the Lord's working on me on right now. Because of my background, there's a certain part of my, quote, ministry, unquote, because it's not really a ministry in the way that most ministries are ministries. I'm not really a minister or a preacher, because I heard the other day that, people that proclaim themselves preachers on the internet are not. It's a joke. So rather than be a joke, and not that I care, I'm just going to say I'm not a preacher. I'm not a minister. I am a person that blogs talk on the internet. I'm a talk blogger. I reveal to you my thoughts about things because I feel I have some insights and some things to share. And I'm a completely sold out to the Lord Jesus Christ. Wear it on my sleeve. I tell everyone about it eventually. You know what I mean? It's not something I hide. So I can say this, that where the Lord's working on me on is this, learn from mistakes and use wisdom and discernment, yes. But have good regard for the world and humanity, despite the fact that there's this hard thing there that's hard to deal with. That's hard to explain, but I explained it today pretty good, you've got the two sides in collision, the people that agree and embrace the world system and so forth, and those who don't, those who want to remain individuals and not part of the collective hive mind. And then and that's unacceptable to Jezebel, who's ruling from behind the scenes, right? Which is really Satan, yes? So it's really who demands obedience and demands you do things that are against your will and be more and more accepting and loving and free. Yeah, that kind of attitude versus people who are trying to be virtuous. Then the game there is to corrupt them for being perverts, because they are being pure. And so if they're pure, then they get to be perverted. If they're impure, then they get to be saintly. Opposite, 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 double, double. Game. I'm not into the game. So I don't hate Jezebel, and I don't really hate Satan. I don't really hate anything in the creation. I had to let all that go. I need to be able to walk with a good attitude and good regard and open, and have faith that the Lord steers me, you know what I mean? And that have faith that everything's going to work out okay, and have faith that the Lord's in control. And, yes, I observe what they do in Washington and how they conform this way and that to the new, the newfound power of Obama and how the power is based on the numbers. It's based on the, you know, the popularity of his presidency, and now how they're all kissing the ring. I see it, but I don't want to ruin my life over it. You know, I guess politicians are really weak, and yet they're the leaders. You know, that whichever way the wind blows, that's the way they go. That's a sign of a very weak person. It's only when they become a psychopath, when there's no conscience, that one could say, well, there's nobody home. And perhaps we can say that about some of these, you know, people like Hitler and stuff that went on a crazy murderous rampage. But I don't want to worry about Hitler. I don't want to worry about Obama. You know, I used to say, well, I'm not going to let Obama in my house, and, you know, and it's like, well, no, I don't. At this point, I don't care. You know, I've got to see people like that every day out there. I don't want to be concerned, and I don't want to have, I really don't want to have some sort of, you know, discernment means I'm just a mean old man, that I just go out there hating everyone, and that's my discernment. You know, distrusting everything. And I see people like Alex Jones, and with all due respect, because I certainly like Alex, but where that's leading, you know, just a heartbreak, you know, and he's going to have to play it out, and that's really his path. He's going to have to play this whole thing out. But I don't want to be on that. The Lord doesn't want me on that same path he's on. I'll put it that way. I'm not going to condemn his path, because I believe all these paths that we're on, my path can't be your path, can't be his path, can't be her path. None of us has the same path. I learned this lesson, and I was kind of inspired by Frank Whalen some years ago, and then he planted a seed, and then eventually it kind of took form. And that is, he told me that one of the big issues he was having on his radio show was when somebody, you know, they get religion, or they get sober, or they get this or that, and then suddenly they're going on the airwave telling everybody they've got to do what they did. And, you know, 10 years ago, I did the very same thing with God. And now I realize, there is no way that I, an individual, can convince the entire world to go against the world. And then call that happiness. No, if I try to change the world in that manner, you know, barking at it like a dog, which is pretty much what I did. And, you know, I mean, I had a lot of insights too, but I mean, you know, I was barking at it in a funny way, yelling at Satan's penis and this and that, you know, the Washington Monument, as proof that they're all, you know, and it's a lost conclusion and foregone thing. I don't want to, you know, it's an obelisk. You know, man has lust, hurts children, lies to his fellow man, goes to war, hurts more children, hurts adults, hurts, you know, kills innocent, and, you know, terrible, terrible things. I don't want to avoid it. I see it's there. Too many days of mine were ruined because when I see everything as a conspiracy, and I see that I can't trust anyone out there at all. It's what Michael Savage was saying the other day. He was saying that another guy just truly loved this guy. You know, he's a wonderful man. But his distrust of everything and everyone, and barking and yelling about the how evil Obama is and how it's lost and how it's the most disgusting, you know, it's interesting, but I can't go there. I must deal, there's got to be another way. You know, it's no great task to see behind the veil, and it's like the Jezebel thing, and give my examples. It's no big deal for me to tell you what's there. It is a big deal to not be affected in a negative way or have it affect my positive outlook. to not impede my ability to love or be loved, just because there's something there that's a big thing that's in the way of humanity being humane to humanity. My barking at it for years, I mean, there were benefits to it, and I'm not going to put it down, all of it down. I'm just saying that on the spiritual path, we start by barking at what we see the problem to be in a simplistic way. It's Satan's penis. Let's bark at that, you know? Oh, it's the president. That war in Iraq was phony. Look, they've killed millions of Iraqi children. Look, Obama's using drones to blow personal enemies of his on his personal kill list off the face of the earth. Oh my gosh, they're arming themselves with billions and billions and billions of bullets, and every bullet has an American's name on them. They're going to just kill us all. Oh, look, the Denver airport is showing me all the things of my own destruction and horrible Darth Vader future of totalitarianism, where plagues and murderous death are going to befall our children. Oh, look, in Hollywood, they're all pedophiles buggering these kids that they're in the guise of doing casting calls. Oh, look, the city council is corrupt and they're voting themselves a pay raise. Oh, look, they're down. Look, they just murdered this hero because and they're murdering gun people because they're getting ready for a big takeover of the United States. They're softening up the battlefield by getting rid of snipers and gun people and vilifying guns left and right so they can pull an Adolf Hitler and then eventually lock up people in concentration camps that don't think the way they do. Oh, look, right? And it goes on. I mean, you have people, mainstream talk people like Rush and other people, Hannity and those kind of guys. They're talking about the drone thing. They're talking about all this stuff. And I can't go there. All the things I mentioned will hurt me if I embrace them. Meaning, if I worry about the Obama's drone strikes and then turning them on American citizens, or being able to arrest people he doesn't like and not be under and have it under the color of law, so that there's so that he's perfectly within his rights to imprison anyone who disagrees with his political philosophy, let's say. Okay, fine, but I can't worry about that. At the same time, knowing what I know about Jezebel, the world system, the way the world works and all that, and where it all comes from, where it all goes. Okay, fine, I know it all. And you know it all. So we know it all. And given that, I want to love. Now, to love, I have to be able to trust. And to trust, I have to trust my environment isn't going to I have to go with an open hand. In other words, I've got to step out in faith that the Lord's in control and things will be all right. Too many times I see people in the name of Jesus and the preachers out there, and maybe they've done a pretty good job up to a certain point, but then it all becomes, I'm thinking of one guy in particular now, again, a guy who I really truly think he's a great guy and everything, but it's always these topics, the New World Order, Satan's doing this and that. And you'd think by listening that Satan is the most powerful person in the world. And then there's a little lip service thrown into God in the form of, say, a prayer to bind all that Satanism that was the topic of the show for the last 3 hours. I know with mine, Satan, or Jezebel, which is Satan, was only the topic for 2 hours out of 3. I wanted to explain something that I wanted to get out of, pointing out, said we're steeped in our humanity. In other words, perversion, lust, and all that. That's us. But this idea of breaking through to the other side, meaning no longer there's a point of no return where, it no longer. I tried to get at it today earlier. It's what happens internally to a person that affects, that the Lord, that a lot of the Bible's talking about that, and people get hung up on, what the sin is. But what it really is how, is when you lose your shame and guilt and so forth. And they'll call that, in a sense, busting through the other side, right? You have to get to this almost that kind of point of self-aggrandizement, and at the same time realize that, no, I mean, most people are not automatons of Jezebel. It's not like they're robots, but because of what they want, and they realize they can't do it alone, so they join up thinking that it's going to help them get what they want, and then they get something else instead. And I'm saying it's this thing that happens internally is what they don't count on. In other words, they wind up being not themselves, not who they were. So the person that gets the goodies isn't them who started out making the decision to do it the world's way. They're not the ones who receive then the spoils. It's something else in them, because that thing that was them is no longer there. It's fair to say Invasion of the Body Snatchers explain it better. I'm resisting. No, I'll do it your way. I will never go back to where I was. I will always be okay with you, Jezebel. I will always do anything. It's all pure and good. Nothing that comes from you is bad, Mother Goddess, whatever. It's all good, and I feel so taken care of and so loved, and I will just go forward. And then good becomes evil and evil becomes good. In other words, the capacity to do evil deeds in the name of goodness and the Mother Goddess becomes one and the same, to where that person that was there that felt guilt or shame over hurting people now doesn't see it as hurting anyone, but being loving. You see what I mean? It's that change that occurs within that is actually the losing of that's the dynamic of the losing of the soul. And I think I'll call this podcast that. The dynamic, i.e. what happens when a person loses the soul within them. What is it that clicks or changes? What was Invasion of the Body Snatchers really about? And that's it. And so if you're not in that category of calling good evil and evil good and whatnot, and plenty are, a lot of people in the media are, then you're a prodigal, obviously, because there's something wrong. You bounced off the mirror. You may be serving Jezebel, even openly, but it's not quite working out for you. And that means you belong. And, if you really belong to the Lord, don't listen to me, It's the Lord that will indicate it to you, not me. I can't do anything about it. That you can go, okay, after listening to Zeph, I want Jesus. No, it doesn't work that way. It's the Lord who has to prove himself to you. In other words, if he doesn't draw you, then it's not your time. And I want to say one more thing about going on to death. I guess it's illogical that God would create all these people and then kill them all and throw them away in hell. I've got to think, when my grandfather said, people are no damn good, that kind of makes sense when you're in that consciousness he's in. He was a businessman. And, business people of means and power would get together and do bad things. I guess that's what that is, but there's something else, and I just can't quite put my finger on it, but I think, there's an answer that we need to get, because most people that believe that most people go to hell wind up themselves being bitter, angry, untrusting, unloving, and just hateful. We don't want to see, because if that happens to us, then we lose our souls too. But we're so self-righteous, we think, we're automatically going to get a pass and go to heaven. Yeah, it's not that easy. If it were that easy, we could just slam the world and sit there and just go, we're superior, you're lousy, and walk on. I just don't think the Lord's going to let that happen. Till next time. Love you, praying for you, and I'm sure we'll catch up. 3 hours, 13 minutes, and 45 seconds, and I'm just getting warmed up. See you later.